Chapter 64:29. Ling Chuan was resting in his room. When he heard the commotion outside the door, he rose to his feet to take a look. However, when he saw the face that was exactly the same as his expression immediately turned into one of horror. "You are." Before Ling Chuan could finish his sentence, Bailey Hongzhuang stepped forward and covered his mouth with one hand. Mm. Ling Chuan reached out his hand in an attempt to resist. He could sense that the other party's powers were not any more powerful than his own. Most importantly, he could smell a familiar scent. He was certain that the person before him was Bailey Hongzhuang. "Don't speak. Once we're discovered, both of us will suffer." Bailey Hongzhuang lowered her voice and said. But Ling Chuan didn't care at all, directly punching Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly blocked the attack with one hand and released Ling Chuan's mouth with her right hand. "You!" In that short moment, Bailey Hongzhuang charged forward and covered Ling Chuan's mouth once again. At the same time, she stuffed a pill into his mouth. In the blink of an eye, Ling Chuan never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would use this move. When he thought about how Elder Guo's poison had yet to be cured, his heart turned cold. This woman's methods of poisoning were extremely terrifying. Now that she has poisoned him as well, wouldn't it be difficult for him to escape this calamity? At that moment, Ling Chuan decided to fight it out with Bailey Hongzhuang. His life was already at risk anyway. Even if he were to die, he would drag Bailey Hongzhuang down with him. He could not allow Bailey Hongzhuang to escape. Most importantly, the face before him was exactly the same. Even he could not tell the difference. Perhaps after Bailey Hongzhuang kills him, she would use his identity to continue living. A chill ran down his spine at the thought of this. His heart had never felt so cold before. However, just as he was about to resist, he realized that his body had lost all its strength. His face instantly turned pale. Seeing that Ling Chuan had finally stopped, Bailey Hongzhuang let out a sigh of relief. She had finally restrained this guy. Otherwise, Ling Chuan was also at the Radiant Sun realm. If they really fought, even if she won, she would definitely cause a huge commotion and be discovered by Elder Duan. "Are you stupid?" Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Ling Chuan speechlessly. She couldn't tell that this guy was so loyal to the Xianqing sect. "You were involved in my escape earlier. If I appear here again now, do you think they will believe that you are innocent or that you are with me?" Her clear and cold voice was as gentle as water, but contained a kind of power that made people feel at ease. "I'll tell you the truth. I robbed the resource room today, and Elder Duan of the resource room is outside right now. If he finds out that we're together, you're dead." Ling Chuan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in horror and felt like he was going crazy. This woman was simply too terrifying. First, she blew up Changmei Peak. Elder Guo and Medicine Master Ji had yet to cure their poison. Now, she actually went to the resource room. What kind of place was the resource room? No matter what they obtained, it would be an extremely precious cultivation resource. What he found most unbelievable was that Bailey Hongzhuang was actually able to take things out of the resource room. This was too terrifying. How many people had tried to rob the resource room? None of them had succeeded. Bailey Hongzhuang, an abandoned person, was actually able to do this. It was simply like a dream. Chapter 64:30. If you don't tell me, I can still share some cultivation resources with you. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. "Didn't you join the sect for cultivation resources? You're just a disciple planting spiritual fields now. If you want to exchange them for precious cultivation resources, who knows how many acres of fields you'll have to plant. You should think carefully about this debt." Ling Chuan's expression changed slightly. In fact, after discovering that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't kill him immediately, he felt a little relieved. This proved that she didn't intend to kill him and replace him to stay in Xianqing's sect. Just like when he was in the water prison, Bailey Hongzhuang only knocked him out and didn't take his life. Elder Duan originally turned around to leave after seeing Ling Chuan enter the house. However, not long after Ling Chuan entered the house, he suddenly heard a commotion from inside. Slowly frowning, Elder Duan slowly walked towards the house. Could it be that the problem was still with Ling Chuan? Bailey Hongzhuang was communicating with Ling Chuan when she suddenly heard light footsteps coming from outside. Her expression also changed. Creak. The door was pushed open and Elder Duan saw the room clearly. Elder Duan, is there a problem with the spiritual fields? Ling Chuan stood up and asked respectfully. Elder Duan looked at Ling Chuan and asked, what happened just now? When I came back just now, I found Cheng Yu in my house. I was a little curious about why he was here, but then I remembered that we had an appointment yesterday. There are 2 acres of spiritual fields that are about to mature. He brought the seeds to me today. Ling Chuan smiled. Cheng Yu stood up and bowed respectfully. Greetings, Elder Duan. I see. Elder Duan nodded. I have nothing else to do. I'll go back first. It wasn't until Elder Duan's footsteps were getting farther and farther away that Ling Chuan fell to the ground weakly. Bailey Hongzhuang also breathed a sigh of relief. At that moment, cold sweat had also seeped out of her back. If not for the fact that she had met another cultivator in the spiritual field, she would have been completely exposed. If you promise not to cause any trouble, I'll give you the antidote. How about that? Bailey Hongzhuang sized up Ling Chuan. The effect of this pill was to make a cultivator lose their cultivation for a short period of time. This was given to them by Granny Hua to save their lives at critical moments. However, this pill also needed to be detoxified. Otherwise, one's cultivation would be affected. She didn't have any bad intentions towards Ling Chuan. Although she didn't claim to be a good person, she didn't intend to drag someone she didn't have any enmity with her. Ling Chuan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang helplessly and nodded dejectedly. He was now tied to the same boat as Bailey Hongzhuang. Even if he was unwilling, there was nothing he could do. Just as she had said, once he was discovered, his ending would not be any better than Bailey Hongzhuang. The sect would not allow such a dangerous possibility to exist. They would rather kill him than let him live. Rather than that, he might as well stay here peacefully. Although he had been punished, at least his life was not in danger. Bailey Hongzhuang handed the antidote to Ling Chuan, and he immediately swallowed it. Chapter 64:31. Bailey Hongzhuang sat down in an unrestrained manner. Her face had returned to its original appearance, and a playful smile appeared on her elegant, lotus-like features. I don't want to do anything. If Guosheng had not captured me and brought me here, I would have been happy and carefree in the abandoned immortal forest. Ling Chuan stared suspiciously at Bailey Hongzhuang. Did you really kill Guoshaojie? Would you believe me if I told you that I didn't kill him? Bailey Hongzhuang asked in return. Ling Chuan's face was filled with suspicion. Clearly, he did not believe her. Elder Guo's anger was not fake. If it had not been for Guo Shaojie's incident, he would not have done such a thing. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged when she noticed Ling Chuan's expression. Anyway, I didn't kill him. It's up to you whether you believe me or not. Ling Chuan began to believe her when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang's calm expression. After all, based on Bailey Hongzhuang's current situation, it would not be a big deal even if she were to admit it. Besides, he and she were already in the same boat. He would never tell on her. Master, how are you? Xiaohei had been worried ever since it had hidden itself in the chaos ring. It did not know if Elder Duan had discovered its master. However, it did not dare to rush out, so it could only wait for the result inside. Every minute and second was extremely unbearable for it. It was so worried that it was about to go crazy. Don't worry, everything's fine now. Just as Xiaohei was at a loss for what to do, Bailey Hongzhuang's gentle voice chimed in. Xiaohei heaved a sigh of relief when it heard this heavenly voice. It lay limply on the ground and felt completely at ease. Xiaohei then tossed the chaos ring into the air. However, it was completely stunned when it saw Ling Chuan. Master, Ling Chuan looked at Xiaohei when he heard that. He was a little surprised when he saw how soft and cute it was. Why are you so small? Xiaohei's expression changed slightly. She looked at Ling Chuan in confusion, then looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Master, this... Bailey Hongzhuang patted Xiaohei's little head and smiled faintly. Don't worry, we're on the same side now. Xiaohei looked at Ling Chuan in surprise. Although she didn't understand what was going on, It was obvious that the situation was no longer dangerous. What did you get from the resource room? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Xiao He with a smile. Although the previous scene was very dangerous, it was still worth it. Master, I listened to you and couldn't be greedy, so I didn't stay in there for long. I only took a few things and came out. Ling Chuan was also very curious. He knew very well how many treasures there were in the resource room. Every time he went to collect cultivation resources, he couldn't help but go and take a look. However, those precious cultivation resources were simply too expensive to exchange for points. Even when he was guarding the water prison, it was an astronomical figure. Now that he was being punished to plant the spirit farm, he had basically given up on this idea. However, these things that they thought were impossible to obtain had been taken back by Bailey Hongzhuang, just like that. This was really infuriating. This. Xiao He mumbled to herself as she took out the item that she had retrieved from the resource room. 10,000-year-old ice ginseng. Chapter 6432. Although the 10,000-year-old ice ginseng was usually kept in the resource room, everyone knew that it was just there for show. It was impossible to exchange for it. The 10,000-year-old ice ginseng was extremely precious. Even if everyone wanted to exchange for it, they would only exchange for the 10,000-year-old ice ginseng's whiskers. Even if it was just a whisker, the number of points required was extremely shocking. However, this guy actually took out the entire 10,000-year-old ice ginseng. At that moment, Ling Chuan also understood why Elder Duan's expression was so terrifying. If it were him, he would also be anxious to death after losing such an important treasure. He probably wouldn't be able to explain it to the sect leader. He recalled that Xiao He said that Bailey Hongzhuang reminded it not to be greedy. Was this not greedy? Putting everything else aside, just this 10,000-year-old ice ginseng alone was worth everything. Just as Ling Chuan was thinking, Xiao He didn't stop moving. It took out the treasures one by one. In fact, it didn't know the uses of many heaven and earth treasures. It just looked at the ones that required the most points and took them back. I only took a total of 5 items. Xiao He pursed its lips. There wasn't enough time, and it affected its performance. When it left, it looked at the many items in the resource room and was reluctant to part with them. How great would it be if it could take all of these items away? Ling Chuan looked at the 5 items in front of him. Each of them was extremely precious. The other 4 items weren't much worse than the 10,000-year-old ice ginseng. These things were things that they had been dreaming about even in their dreams. Not only did Xiao He bring back so many items, but it still felt that the items were too little. Isn't your appetite a little too big? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the 5 items in front of her, and her eyes lit up. She studied medicine with her mother-in-law all day long and had some understanding of these treasures. Therefore, when Xiao He took them out, she knew the value of these items. Xiao He, you have a good eye. These things are all very good, Bailey Hongzhuang praised with a smile. Xiao He, who was feeling a little regretful at first, felt her gloominess disappear after hearing her master's praise. Her eyes lit up with anticipation as she asked, "Really?" Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "Of course it's true. Even your mother-in-law would praise you if she saw these things, let alone me." Xiao He giggled at the side. Being praised by his master was the happiest thing in his life. Ling Chuan, which one do you like? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Ling Chuan. If it wasn't for Ling Chuan, she would have been exposed. Naturally, none of these things would belong to her. Since she said that she would give Ling Chuan a share, she naturally wouldn't go back on her words. As Bailey Hongzhuang spoke, Ling Chuan was stunned. Then, a look of disbelief surfaced in his eyes. His voice trembled with excitement as he asked, "You're saying that I can choose one item from here?" "Of course." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled gently. Her eyes were as bright as stars. "Choose for yourself." Ling Chuan felt an indescribable sense of happiness spread through his heart. Usually, it would be an extravagant hope to be able to obtain even a small portion of these items. Now he could actually obtain the entire set. Chapter 6433. I'll take this. Ling Chuan pointed to the purple lotus spirit leaf at the side. The most precious of all was the 10,000-year-old ice ginseng. He naturally couldn't take it away directly. However, the purple lotus spirit leaf was also an extremely precious treasure. Countless cultivators yearned to have it. All right, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and handed the purple lotus spirit leaf to Ling Chuan with a faint smile. Ling Chuan still felt like he was in a dream when he received the purple lotus spirit leaf. He only felt that everything in front of him was too unreal. Then what are you going to do next? After carefully putting away the purple lotus spirit leaf, Ling Chuan asked seriously. At this moment, he no longer had any hostility towards Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, it was Elder Gua who made the first move. Bailey Hongzhuang was just responding passively from the beginning to the end. Although he had only known Bailey Hongzhuang for a short time, in this short period of time, he already knew that the other party was a very generous and loyal person. If it was an ordinary person, even if they were good brothers, they would not care about feelings in the face of such a treasure. However, Bailey Hongzhuang gave such a precious treasure to him just because she felt guilty. How many people could do this? Bailey Hongzhuang's face revealed a thoughtful expression. At present, she had not thought of a way to leave. Now that the entire Xianqing sect is looking for me, it won't be easy for me to leave. Bailey Hongzhuang was a little helpless. She also knew that every day she stayed here, Beiqun and the rest would be more worried. If her judgment was correct, Beiqun and the rest should be near the immortal region soon. Guisheng was definitely not a good person. Even if he had not been cured, the plan must have been set up. Once Beiqun and the rest came, there would be trouble. Do you know what danger it is for abandoned people to barge into the immortal region without an identity card? Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly asked. Ling Chuan's expression turned cold. If they barge into the immortal region, it will be dangerous. The restriction on the entrance to the immortal domain was extremely powerful. As long as one was not a cultivator from the immortal domain, it would be impossible to break through. I heard that there was once an abandoned person who wanted to barge in directly, but he was destroyed by the restrictive spell. So scary? Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly taken aback. Although she had already guessed that it would be difficult to enter the immortal domain, the degree of difficulty seemed to be even more terrifying than she had imagined. Anyway, it's really scary to barge in. Could it be that your friend is planning to save you? Ling Chuan was also very smart. Just by looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, he had already guessed it. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, her pretty face filled with worry. It seems like I really have to think of a way to leave this place. Right now, everyone is looking for you. Even if you know how to disguise yourself, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for you to leave. Ling Chuan said with difficulty. That's right. Can you take Xiao He with you and leave? Bailey Hongzhuang pointed at the extremely small Xiao He. Ling Chuan glanced at Xiao He and nodded. Right now, many people are guarding outside the sect. Even if I go, it won't be strange. It won't be difficult to take it out, but what's the use of it? You won't be able to leave. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up. You don't have to worry about that. As long as you can take Xiao He with you, it'll be fine. Chapter 6434. Even though Ling Chuan's heart was full of doubts, looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's confident appearance, he inexplicably felt at ease. This woman's ability was obviously stronger than all of them thought. In fact, there was no one else who could hide in Xianqing's sect for so long without being discovered, except for Bailey Hongzhuang. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Ling Chuan were talking, Xianqing's sect was in an uproar. When the disciples who planted the spirit fruits in the spirit fields returned, they found that all the fruits and vegetables they planted had been plucked. What should we do? How could these fruits and vegetables be plucked out of nowhere? How should I explain this? The fruits in your spirit fields are gone too? All the ripe fruits in my spirit fields are gone. This is really over. It's over, it's over. Wails continued to resound, but after everyone found out that it wasn't only their spirit fields that were stolen, they felt more at ease. In this way, even if they were punished, it wouldn't be just one person. In the meeting hall, Xianqing sect master listened to the elder's report with a livid expression. In that case, Bailey Hongzhuang is still in our Xianqing sect, and has taken away all the ripe fruits and vegetables in the spirit fields? Sect Master, that's true. The great elder braced himself and replied. Even though he was so far away, he could clearly feel the sect master's low pressure. So, are you all a bunch of trash? The sect master flew into a rage. How many days has it been since the incident in the water prison? You can't even find an abandoned person. All the elders' hearts trembled. They lowered their heads and didn't dare to say anything. They just gave the order to a group of disciples. After all, she was just an abandoned person. They only felt that there was no need for them to do anything. However, they didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be so cunning. So many disciples collectively searched for her, but they couldn't find her. She even dared to take away the fruits in the spirit fields. Sect Master, we will definitely speed up and find Bailey Hongzhuang. Abandoned people are still abandoned people. Although the things in the spirit fields are a bit of a pity, they aren't very important things. Since she cares so much about these petty profits, we can also pay more attention in this regard. The matter of the spiritual field is indeed small, but she's slapping the face of our Xianqing sect. The sect leader was still angry. An abandoned person has already caused chaos in our Xianqing sect. What will others think of our Xianqing sect? What a joke. At that moment, Elder Duan arrived. Elder Duan, why are you only here now? One of the elders asked. Elder Duan's expression was a little ugly as he looked nervously at the sect leader. He was constantly thinking about how he should say this. Elder Duan, have you heard about the theft of the spirit fields? Fortunately, this woman's vision is rather low. She only knows how to steal the spiritual fields. The good stuff is all in the resource room. Another elder chuckled and said, How powerful are the guards of the resource room? How could she possibly break in? Elder Duan, who was already very conflicted, looked even uglier after hearing everyone's words. These guys seemed to have already expected something would happen and touched on the pot that didn't boil. The sect master didn't care too much at first, but when he noticed Elder Duan's expression, his eyes gradually changed. Chapter 64:35. As soon as the sect leader finished speaking, everyone present was stunned and turned to look at Elder Duan. Elder Duan felt an immense pressure when he was faced with the puzzled gazes. His back was soon drenched in cold sweat. 5 treasures had been stolen from the resource room this time, and they were the most precious top-grade treasures. He had already searched the surroundings as fast as he could, but he did not find anyone. Therefore, he could only take on this big trouble himself. Something has indeed happened in the resource room. Elder Duan lowered his head and said in shame. The entire meeting hall fell silent as soon as he said that. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Numerous astonished and shocked gazes landed on Elder Duan. The usually calm elders no longer cared about their image at this moment, and all of them widened their eyes. Elder Duan, is what you said true? The resource room has always been guarded very strictly. I heard that Bailey Hongzhuang has not even broken through to the glorious sun state. How could she have possibly stolen something right under your nose? Elder Duan felt even more humiliated when he was faced with the crowd's questions. He could not understand why he had been so obsessed today that he had followed the group of disciples to check out the situation out of curiosity. Furthermore, he could not understand how Bailey Hongzhuang, an abandoned person who had never seen the world, could have managed to grasp the timing so well. She had not been greedy when faced with so many treasures and had escaped immediately after taking some. It sounded simple, but most cultivators would not be able to do that. Elder Duan, what's going on? The sect leader regained his rationality in his anger. It was useless to be angry now. Most importantly, he was curious about how Bailey Hongzhuang had managed to do that. Even the disciples in their sect could not have done something like that. Under the sect leader's pressurizing gaze, Elder Duan slowly explained everything that had happened. I never thought that something like this would happen after leaving for such a short while. Elder Duan felt ashamed and guilty. He had been guarding the resource room for so many years, and this was the first time something like this had happened. Just thinking about it made him feel gloomy. However, after everyone heard all this, their hearts became even more complicated. From the looks of it, This Bailey Hongzhuang is quite smart. The sect leader had a complicated look on his face. Initially, he had treated her as a small fry and did not take her to heart. However, after understanding everything that Bailey Hongzhuang had done, he began to feel that this woman had many shining points. If it was their sect's disciples who were captured, it would be impossible for them to do this. Not to mention breaking into the resource room, it was impossible not to be discovered. However, Bailey Hongzhuang acted as if it was nothing and was as carefree as a fish swimming in the water. All the elders nodded. In fact, they had been thinking about this for the past 2 days. If their disciples also had such strength, then they would definitely be able to obtain first place in the sect competition. Such an outstanding disciple was actually an abandoned person. It was simply a reckless waste of God's gift. This girl is indeed very powerful. If not, Eldergua's grandson would not have fallen in her hands. The first elder said in a deep voice. Chapter 64:36. In response to the head, Eldergua's life has been saved, but his paralysis problem is very serious. I specifically went to inquire before coming, and it said that he's still in the process of detoxifying the poison. He already has a direction, and I believe that he should be able to detoxify the poison in a short period of time. Second elder spoke. The head nodded slightly. That's good. After a long while, the sect head finally spoke. No matter if that Bailey Hongzhuang has 3 heads and 6 arms or what, we must find her today. We absolutely can't let her continue to cause trouble like this. Everyone's hearts trembled as soon as these words were spoken, and they all nodded in agreement. A trace of complexity surfaced in his dark eyes as the head sighed faintly. He'd originally thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was a promising talent. Although he was very displeased by what he'd done, he'd always cherished geniuses. However, the enmity between Eldergua and Bailey Hongzhuang ran so deep that if he left Bailey Hongzhuang behind, he'd be letting Eldergua down. Between the two, Eldergua was naturally more important. The various elders were all smart people, not to mention the head. Even they had thoughts of cherishing talent. If such an intelligent girl were to stay in the Xianqing sect, she'd likely quickly become the most outstanding disciple in the inner sect. If it wasn't for the first elder's words reminding the head, the elders would have already spoken these words. The Hall of Healing. The Hall of Healing was undoubtedly bustling with activity. Many alchemists were shuttling back and forth inside, all of them looking very distressed. They were all trying their best to think of how to detoxify this poison. This poison is truly strange. We've already tried many methods. Even though it's been alleviated somewhat, we're still unable to completely detoxify it. In my opinion, Bailey Hongzhuang's master must be an expert. This kind of poison isn't something that an ordinary alchemist can concoct. Perhaps it's a very powerful poison master. I also think so. Eldergua is usually so arrogant, but this time he's really capsized in the gutter. When the head arrived at the Hall of Healing and saw this scene, his already irritated heart became even more irritated when he heard these words. Look at what you've done. The sect leader looked at Gua Sheng angrily. In fact, he had heard of Gua Sheng's actions over the years. If he didn't cause any big trouble, it wouldn't be a big deal, but he didn't expect that he would cause such a troublesome matter. Hasn't Gua Shaojia caused enough trouble over the years? Now, you've caused even more trouble than him. Sensing the sect master's terrifying rage, Gua Sheng's face paled. He wanted to explain, but his body was paralyzed, and he couldn't even say a word. He could only stare anxiously. You can think about how to apologize after you recover. The sect master flicked his sleeve and said, Since Chang Mei Peak has already disappeared, you don't have to be the main elder anymore. Hearing this, Gua Sheng's heart also panicked. He had been a main elder for so many years and had long since gotten used to all of this. Now that he was stripped of his status as the main elder, how could he still have the face to see others? Woo-woo. However, no matter how hard Gua Sheng tried to speak, he could only produce a blurry silhouette. He could not utter a single word. Chapter 64:37. It's really blown up now. Ling Chuan stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. Even though he already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had robbed the resource room, he also knew that it would be very scary if this matter were to blow up. However, he never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would also rob the spirit fields as well. Why did you rob so many spirit fields, but you didn't do anything to mine? I didn't even do anything to this area. I've already tricked you previously, so I can't keep tricking you. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Previously, Ling Chuan had already caught the attention of the elders because of the water prison incident. If the spirit fields were to be robbed, it would be the second time he had caught everyone's attention. This way, Ling Chuan would most likely be the center of attention. Hence, it wasn't just Ling Chuan's spirit fields that she didn't do anything to this area. If all the other spirit fields were to be robbed and only Ling Chuan's spirit fields remained unscathed, wouldn't that be akin to revealing 300 tales of silver here? Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Ling Chuan chuckled softly. I didn't think that you would be so thoughtful. It's all right. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was casual. Can you take Xiao He and leave now? Ling Chuan thought for a moment before nodding. The entire sect is in a mess now. The sect master has ordered us to find you today, so I think that we really have to hurry up. I'll try to see if I can take this opportunity to send Xiao He out. Otherwise, once the elders and the sect master come to investigate, I'm afraid that you won't be able to escape no matter how good your disguise is. Our sect master is very powerful, so we definitely can't take this risk. Looking at Ling Chuan's dignified appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood. All right, let's give it a try now. But if I take Xiao He out, what about you? Ling Chuan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang worriedly. It's not safe for you to stay here. Don't worry about me. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand. As long as I can bring Xiao He back, I can return. All right then. As Ling Chuan walked out of the house, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately entered the chaos ring. Xiao He hid the chaos ring in her hair and slowly walked out of the house. Ling Chuan stretched out his hand and said, "Come on up." Xiao He leaped up Ling Chuan's arm and ran into his arms. Her white fur and white clothes blended together, and no one noticed her. After looking around, Ling Chuan quickly rushed towards the main gate of the sect. Normally, there would always be restrictions placed on the main gate of the sect. If he wanted to leave, he would need the permission of the elders. However, because the recent commotion was too big, many disciples were already waiting outside the gate. As long as he took the opportunity to blend in with these disciples, he would be able to take the opportunity to release Xiao He. As for the rest, he could not do it for the time being. Along the way, Ling Chuan found that almost everyone was talking about the theft of the resource room. It was clearly an extremely daring thing to do, but now everyone only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was really too powerful. Her ability was even stronger than that of the inner disciples. She could be said to be the role model of the inner disciples. Seeing that the elders had not appeared, Ling Chuan heaved a sigh of relief. At least he still had a chance. As he got closer and closer to the main gate, he gradually relaxed. As long as he could release Xiao He, that would be enough. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. "Greetings, Sect Master. Greetings, Sect Master." Chapter 6438. Ling Chuan's heart skipped a beat. He was so unlucky to meet the sect master as soon as he arrived. As soon as he turned around, sure enough, the sect master's figure appeared in his line of sight. However, compared to his usual indifference, the sect master had a hint of anger. The serious aura exuding from his body made people not dare to approach him at all. "Greetings, sect master." Ling Chuan bowed. The sect master's gaze swept across the group of disciples in front of him. Elder Daxiang said beside him, "Sect master, these disciples are guarding outside the gate to prevent Bailey Hongzhuang from leaving." Now, Bailey Hongzhuang may have disguised herself as anyone from our Xianqing sect. Before I came, did any disciples leave here? Hearing this, all the disciples were shocked. They finally understood why Bailey Hongzhuang had not been discovered. Everyone couldn't help but look around. They didn't know if Bailey Hongzhuang would be standing beside them. Now, the great elder and I will confirm the aura of each disciple one by one. All the disciples will gather to one side. The disciples who have been confirmed will stand on the other side to prevent others from taking advantage of the situation. Ling Chuan's heart trembled. He never thought that the sect master would make such a decision. It was a huge project to screen all the disciples one by one. It could be seen that Bailey Hongzhuang's actions had really angered the sect master. Usually, the sect master would rarely appear, let alone check the aura of the disciples one by one. Bailey Hongzhuang was not here, but under such a check, the existence of Bailey Hongzhuang would be discovered sooner or later. Not only that, Xiao He was still in his arms. If the sect master found out, what should he do? This place was clearly only a few steps away from the door, but he was stopped here. At the moment, he couldn't let Xiao He leave. His every move was under the attention of the people around him. The slightest movement would be noticed. The sect master's expression was deep. According to his judgment, the reason why Bailey Hongzhuang hadn't been recognized for so long was most likely because she had taken the appearance-changing pill. This pill was expensive, but it was also very useful. Even the ordinary elders in the sect might not be able to judge it. Logically speaking, it was impossible for an abandoned person to have this kind of pill. However, thinking about how Bailey Hongzhuang poisoned Eldegua, it could be seen that she must know a very strong pharmacist, so it was not surprising that she had this kind of pill. The sect master and the great elder didn't delay. How many disciples in the entire Xianqing sect? Relying on their judgment, this was definitely a huge task. By the sect masters of the sect masters of disciples. One by one, the disciples were locked on by the head of the sect. Only after they were allowed to pass to the other side did they feel relieved. They curiously looked at the disciples waiting to be checked on the other side, wanting to know if Bailey Hongzhuang would be in the crowd. Ling Chuan's palms were already sweating and his body was tense. Even if he tried his best to not be nervous, he couldn't do it at all. The sect master must know about Xiao He's existence. Once he was discovered, he would be finished. While waiting nervously, the sect master's footsteps also stopped in front of Ling Chuan. "Are you nervous?" The sect master's voice slowly sounded. Ling Chuan was shocked. Everyone's eyes focused on him at this moment. Chapter 6439. When the great elder saw Ling Chuan's face clearly, he finally understood. "Sect master, this person is the disciple who was drugged in the water prison. You must be nervous because of this." Hearing this, the sect master's gaze softened a little. "So it's you." Ling Chuan quickly knelt down and said, "Sect master, this disciple was negligent. I will never do it again in the future." The sect master looked at the nervous Ling Chuan indifferently and carefully scanned his aura. After confirming that he was indeed not Bailey Hongzhuang in disguise, he said, "Since you've already received your punishment, there's no need to be nervous." "Ling Chuan, why are you still standing here?" The great elder saw Ling Chuan standing there in a daze, not knowing how to move at all. "Ah." Ling Chuan raised his head blankly. He was already prepared to be discovered. "If you've been checked, go over there. Why are you still here?" Ling Chuan was stunned. After confirming that he did not hear wrongly, he quickly walked to the side, as if he had been pardoned. He did not know why Xiao He was not checked, but this result was too surprising for him. Everyone looked at Ling Chuan's appearance and could not help but laugh. This guy's recent encounter was indeed quite unlucky. This reaction was not strange. It was not until the sect master and great elder checked everyone and found that there was no one that they turned around and left. Ling Chuan heaved a sigh of relief. He had never been so nervous in his life. Outside the immortal region, it said that this Xianqing sect is not far from the entrance of the immortal region. Di Beichen looked ahead, then turned to look at Granny Hua. "Granny, how should we go in?" After knowing the whole story, Granny Hua was the only senior who came this time. According to Senior Yu and the others, it was enough for Granny Hua to come to this place alone. Although everyone was a little surprised, they also understood Granny Hua's ability even more. Ling, and the others also looked at Granny Hua. Even though they had rushed over, it still took them a few days to get here. Fortunately, she could feel that Hongzhuang was alive and well. However, she had been captured by Guosheng, so her life must be very difficult. In the past few days, they could clearly feel Di Beichen's worry. The kind of extremely low pressure made them not dare to speak casually, for fear that it would make Beichen even more uncomfortable. "Leave it to me." Granny Hua's eyes flashed with a cold light. In any case, he came from the immortal domain. Naturally, he has a few good friends. They will still give him some face. Everyone couldn't help but be surprised when they heard this. They knew how difficult it was to enter the celestial realm. It was even more dangerous to enter the celestial realm from the chaotic celestial realm. However, Granny Hua was actually so calm and was prepared to directly bring them in. "It's just that there are too many of you. In my opinion, Beichan should follow me in. The others should wait outside." Granny Hua looked at everyone. She knew that these little guys were very worried about Hong Zhuang. She could feel it along the way. However, the immortal region was not a place that could be entered and exited at will. It would only take a little effort for her to bring Di Beichan in. However, with so many of them, it was too eye-catching. It was impossible for them to enter. Chapter 6440. Seeing that everyone was very sensible, Granny Hua turned her gaze towards Di Beichan and said, "Let's go." Di Beichan immediately followed closely behind Granny Hua. His handsome face could not hide his anxiety. Now, he only hoped that he could find Bailey Hongzhuang as soon as possible. As long as he did not see her, he would feel at ease. After Ling Chuan saw that the sect master had left, he looked behind him. Since he was already here, he naturally had to think of a way to send Xiao He out. Otherwise, if he wanted to leave the sect at will after today, he would have to inform the sect master. Most importantly, Bailey Hongzhuang had said that as long as Xiao He could leave, she would be able to leave as well. Even though they had only known each other for a short period of time, he had already regarded Bailey Hongzhuang as a friend. Naturally, he did not wish for her to be in danger. Ling Chuan slowly moved towards the outside at the thought of this. "Xiao He, hurry and leave." Ling Chuan bowed slightly and let Xiao He leave. "We'll meet again if fate wills it." Xiao He did not delay and quickly moved towards the outside while no one was paying attention to her. "Ling Chuan, what are you doing over there?" A disciple could not help but call out when he saw that Ling Chuan had run out of the restrictive spell at the main door. Ling Chuan smiled faintly and said, "I'm going to relieve myself. Since so many of you are standing here, I have no choice but to go outside." Hearing this, the crowd chuckled. The great elder said that those who have been checked should stay where they are in case they have to be checked again when we return. I'm afraid that we'll have to stay here for a long time. Now that the sect master has personally made a move, Bailey Hongzhuang will definitely not be able to escape. What a pity. Why wasn't I the one who caught her? I missed out on a chance to become an inner disciple for no reason. Ling Chuan smiled and chatted cheerfully with the crowd. In his mind, he was thinking about how Bailey Hongzhuang was going to leave this place. Now that he could no longer return, he had no way of informing Bailey Hongzhuang of this news. He could only hope that she would be able to leave this place safely, as she had said. Ling Chuan reached out and touched the spot where Xiao He was just now. He suddenly realized that there was a Chinquan pouch on his chest. A trace of doubt appeared on Ling Chuan's face. He took out his Cosmos sack in shock. This was not his Cosmos sack. Could it be that Xiao He had left it there? Opening the Chinquan bag, Ling Chuan found some bottles and jars. Taking a closer look, he realized that these bottles and jars were all extremely precious medicines and pills. In addition, he also found a note in the Chinquan bag. "So she left it for me." A trace of a smile appeared in Ling Chuan's eyes. "You actually gave me such a precious thing just like that." Now, he only felt that he deserved to be punished to guard the spirit fields. Even though he had more points when he was guarding the water prison, it was definitely not enough to exchange for so many cultivation resources. He was very grateful to Bailey Hongzhuang, but he didn't know if he would have a chance to thank her in the future. So the abandoned people are actually so wealthy. In the future, I definitely can't underestimate the cultivators of the abandoned immortal forest. Xiao He hugged the chaos ring and ran all the way outside. It was not until she had left the Xianqing sect's territory that she heaved a sigh of relief. "Master, we're out." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang emerged from the chaos ring. Looking at the unfamiliar scene in front of her, a smile appeared on her face. We're finally out. Chapter 64-41. We can only say that the sect leader is unlucky. Originally, we would have left today and nothing would have happened. However, he wanted to search today. We lost the chance to establish our prestige and lost our face. Bailey Hongzhuang spread out her hands. In fact, she was also a little unwilling. Guosheng was so hateful. She originally wanted to kill Guosheng, but she didn't expect that guy to save her life. However, other than that one opportunity, she didn't have any other opportunities. Therefore, no matter how unwilling she was, there was nothing she could do. Revenge was a dish best served cold. As long as Guosheng was still alive, she would be able to get her revenge sooner or later. Di Beichun followed Granny Hua all the way to the Xianqing sect. The two of them used their speed to the extreme, unwilling to delay for even a second. This was because no one knew what would happen to Hongzhuang in the next second. Master, I can sense Xiao He. At this moment, Xiao Bai's voice suddenly sounded. Hearing this voice, Di Beichun's face immediately showed a trace of excitement. Really? Where is she? Just ahead. Xiao Bai pointed ahead with an excited expression. In the next moment, Di Beichun and Granny Hua both sped up and quickly rushed forward. We're out, but we still have to think about how to leave the immortal region. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the road ahead, and a thoughtful expression appeared on her face. The inspection of the immortal region was definitely not simple. Moreover, she didn't have an identity card, so naturally, she couldn't openly appear in the sight of the cultivators of the immortal region. Otherwise, once she appeared, she would inevitably cause some trouble. When she first came, she was knocked out and captured. She had no impression of this route at all. Xiao He's ability to distinguish directions wasn't very strong, so naturally, she could only follow Bailey Hongzhuang. At this moment, a voice full of surprise sounded. Hongzhuang. Hearing this familiar voice, Bailey Hongzhuang was stunned for a moment. She even suspected that she had misheard. However, when she turned around and saw that familiar figure, her lotus-like face immediately bloomed with a pleasantly surprised smile. Beichen Master. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly stepped forward, her voice as light as an aureole's. You were a step too slow to save me. Granny Hua and Di Beichun were originally very worried about Bailey Hongzhuang. They were afraid that she would suffer in Xianqing sect. However, they didn't expect to see Bailey Hongzhuang walk out as soon as they arrived. How'd he do it? Not only Di Beichun, but even Granny Hua was very surprised. Logically speaking, this was simply impossible. Hongzhuang, are you hurt? Di Beichun looked at Bailey Hongzhuang nervously. He didn't have the heart to ask what was going on. He just wanted to know if Hongzhuang had been bullied these days. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and shook her head. I'm fine. Don't you see that I'm fine now? Looking at the smiling face in front of them, Di Beichun and Granny Hua were relieved. Hongzhuang's ability was indeed extraordinary. If this kind of thing happened to others, they would have already lost their lives. However, not only was Hongzhuang alive, she also ran out safe and sound. This huge Xianqing sect was simply a decoration. It was useless to her. Chapter 64-42. At the same time, Granny Hua was also a little proud. She had always known that Bailey Hongzhuang was very outstanding, but she had never thought that she would be able to escape in such a situation. This kind of ability was not something an ordinary person could have. Hongzhuang was able to do this, which proved her strength. Even if she went to the chaotic immortal realm in the future, she would not have to worry too much. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was chatting with Granny Hua with a smile, she suddenly felt the pressure around her drop. As soon as she looked up, she saw Di Beichun's angry face. He hit you. Di Beichun held Bailey Hongzhuang's white and slender hand. From a slightly slipping sleeve, he saw a red scar. Although the scar had begun to heal, he could still see that it must have been bloody before. Granny Hua's face turned cold when she heard that. She saw Di Beichun roll up Bailey Hongzhuang's sleeve, and the bright red whip scar was shocking. If her arm was like this, then there was no need to mention the scars on her body. In fact, this was what he was most worried about on the way here. Although Hong Zhuang had escaped, it was obvious that she had been tortured by Guosheng before. Bailey Hong Zhuang rolled down her sleeve and said softly, "Actually, it's nothing. It's almost healed now." At that time, the injury was indeed very serious. However, with her body's current recovery speed, it did not affect her at all. Moreover, she had been seriously injured many times during her daily training. This kind of situation was a common occurrence for her. Damn it, Di Beichen cursed. His face was terrifyingly gloomy. Ever since Hong Zhuang disappeared, he had been blaming himself so much that he was going crazy. He had been wondering why he did not accompany Hong Zhuang. Why did he let her go by the spiritual herbs alone? If he had been with her, perhaps this would not have happened. Granny Hua's face also darkened. An elder of the Xianqing sect dares to treat my disciple like this? I haven't left the abandoned immortal forest for so many years, but these guys' hands are getting longer and longer. In the next moment, a faint light flashed in Granny Hua's eyes. Let's go to the Xianqing sect. Hearing this, Bailey Hong Zhuang was slightly stunned. Go back. Since Guosheng dared to attack you, I naturally have to let him know the price of attacking my disciple. Di Beichen held Bailey Hong Zhuang's hand. Let's go together. Granny, the strength of the Xianqing sect. Bailey Hong Zhuang understood her mother-in-law and Beichen's feelings for her. She was also very moved. However, Xianqing sect was also a sect. If they went there alone, in case of danger, she didn't want to involve her mother-in-law. Granny must have her reasons for living in the abandoned immortal forest all these years. If it wasn't for him, Granny probably wouldn't have come to the immortal domain. Sometimes she even wondered if Granny had enemies in the immortal domain, so she didn't come here. The corner of Granny Hua's lips curled up. It was different from her usual kindness. Instead, it was cold with a trace of killing intent. Even if it was only for a short moment, Bailey Hong Zhuang still noticed the difference in her mother-in-law's aura. This was the first time she saw her mother-in-law like this. It's just a small sect. It's nothing. Chapter 6443. Xianqing Sect. As more and more disciples were checked by the sect leader and the great elder, their faces became more and more gloomy. Almost all the disciples had gathered here, and the two of them checked very quickly. As for the other elders, they went to other places to look for Bailey Hong Zhuang. As long as any cultivator did not come, they could almost be sure that this person must be Bailey Hong Zhuang. However, they had already checked most of the disciples, and only a small number of disciples had not been checked, and the elders had not sent any news. This was very strange. Bailey Hong Zhuang would never disappear into thin air. Could it be that she had other means to hide her aura in addition to changing her appearance? This kind of method was just a thought, and the possibility of it happening was too small. This Bailey Hong Zhuang is too good at hiding, isn't she? We haven't found her after so long. What do you think we should do if there is still no trace of Bailey Hong Zhuang after checking everyone? It shouldn't be. Bailey Hong Zhuang doesn't have 3 heads and 6 arms. This kind of situation can't disappear. A group of disciples whispered to each other as they looked at the cultivators who had not been checked. Most of them were sure that Bailey Hong Zhuang was among them. At this moment, a shocking sound came from outside the gate of the Xianqing sect. Bang! The deafening sound made everyone in the Xianqing sect hear it clearly. Everyone turned their heads and looked in the direction of the gate in shock. What was going on? What's going on at the gate? Why is there such a sound? Could it be that Bailey Hong Zhuang wants to take advantage of this time to rush out directly, so she's trying to break through the restriction? Just as the disciples were at a loss, they realized that the sect leader and the great elder had disappeared from where they were standing. The disciples didn't know what was going on, but the sect leader and the great elder knew it too well. This was not the sound of someone breaking through the restriction, but the sound of the restriction being broken. This situation was like someone was breaking into the Xianqing sect. Since the sect leader took office, this was the first time such a thing had happened. The other elders who were searching for Bailey Hong Zhuang's aura were aware of this situation and did not have the heart to find out the whereabouts of Bailey Hong Zhuang. Their figures flashed and rushed towards the gate. However, when the sect leader and the elders arrived, they saw that the restriction had been completely destroyed. The other party had long disappeared. "Where's she?" The sect leader turned his gaze to the stunned disciple and said angrily. Ling Chuan and the other disciples were already in a daze. They had been waiting for the sect leader's news. After all, the sect leader had said that they could not leave without being checked, so they had been standing there without moving. However, while they were waiting in boredom, they saw 3 figures suddenly appear. The granny in the lead waved her hand casually, and the restriction on the door was directly opened. All along, they had felt that the sect's restrictions were extremely powerful, and that it was not something that anyone could easily shake. Now that they saw someone casually break the restriction, they even wondered if they had seen wrongly. Facing the sect leader's questioning, the disciples did not dare to delay and immediately pointed out the direction in which the 3 people had left. Chapter 6444. It just so happened that a disciple who was guarding the water prison was here. When the 3 people appeared, he recognized Bailey Hongzhuang at a glance. That face that could turn all living things upside down was really unforgettable. Hearing this, the sect leader and the elders looked at each other. Their expressions suddenly changed, and they quickly rushed to the back. Ling Chuan looked at the scene in front of him and was also dumbfounded. He didn't think that Bailey Hongzhuang had really gone out. Even more so, he didn't expect that not only did Bailey Hongzhuang go out, but she also came back. However, no matter how stupid he was, he knew that she must be back to get revenge. Originally, when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang's ability, he felt that she wasn't an ordinary abandoned person at all. Her methods were probably unparalleled in the entire Xianqing sect. Through the scene, just now, he understood the reason. That senior strength was really too strong. No wonder Bailey Hongzhuang was so strong at such a young age. As Ling Chuan thought about it, he couldn't help but smile. This was the first time he felt admiration and appreciation for a cultivator of the same generation. Even the first-day disciples of the sect didn't make him admire them so much. Has Bailey Hongzhuang already left our sect? Could it be that she's back to get revenge? That senior strength was really strong. The restriction was broken so easily. What do you think will happen later? Everyone looked at each other, and their minds were filled with thoughts. If the other party really made a scene like this, then their sect's face would really be lost. The sect leader's strength is high. Naturally, he wouldn't allow that senior to mess around. When Bailey Hongzhuang asked Ling Chuan about Guosheng, Ling Chuan told her where Guosheng was. Therefore, after entering, she didn't hesitate to bring her mother-in-law and Beichun directly to Guosheng's location. The Hall of Healing. A group of pharmacists gathered here, their faces full of anticipation. The antidote pill we've concocted this time is extremely effective. It should be able to cure the poison in Elder Gua's body. If this is true, then that's great. This way, we'll have one more type of poison in our grasp. If we make use of it in the future, the effect. Under everyone's expectant gazes, Guosheng suddenly realized that his body, which had been stiff for several days, was gradually regaining its senses. This feeling made him extremely happy. These few short days felt like years to him. Every day, he watched so many apothecaries trying to research it, yet they were still unable to decipher it. He was even worried that his life was over. Fortunately, the poison had finally been neutralized. Because of Bailey Hongzhuang, he lost his status as the main elder and became the joke of the entire Xianqing sect. Only by capturing Bailey Hongzhuang with his own hands could he make up for his mistakes and vent the hatred in his heart. Elder Gua has recovered. Haha, it's really settled. A joyful smile appeared on Guosheng's face, but a trace of viciousness quickly appeared in his eyes. He must capture Bailey Hongzhuang. Whether it was Bailey Hongzhuang or Di Beichun, he would not let any of them off. Bang! At this moment, the door to the Hall of Healing was smashed open with a bang. Immediately after, everyone sensed a tyrannical aura appear at the door. Everyone turned their heads one after another. Just as they were wondering who this person was, a voice full of energy suddenly rang out. Chapter 6445. The old voice was arrogant and domineering, filled with endless anger. A tyrannical aura erupted, intimidating everyone in the Hall of Healing. No one could react for a moment. Guosheng had finally detoxified the poison. Before he could be proud of himself, he suddenly heard such an angry roar. He panicked for no reason, wondering if something had happened to Bailey Hongzhuang again. However, when he realized that the other party didn't know who he was and noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang was behind him, his confidence instantly rose. "How dare you? How dare you trespass into the Hall of Healing?" Guosheng shouted angrily. His face was filled with righteous indignation, but there was a trace of a smile in his eyes. He was worried about how to catch Bailey Hongzhuang. After all, this girl was as cunning as a loach. If so many elders couldn't find her, it wouldn't be easy for him to find her. He didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would deliver herself to his doorstep. Although he didn't know who the woman in front of him was, he knew Di Beichun. Originally, he wanted to go to the Immortal Region and intercept Di Beichun. After all, as long as he could catch one of the two, it wouldn't be difficult to catch the other one. Now, not only did he see these two, he even got one as a gift. Ever since the sect master reprimanded him, he had been thinking about how to make up for his mistakes. If he only caught Bailey Hongzhuang, it was obviously not enough. After all, there was no enmity between Bailey Hongzhuang and the sect. However, after realizing Bailey Hongzhuang's situation, he suddenly found a glimmer of hope. Bailey Hongzhuang was able to use such a rare poison, which meant that she must have the resources in this area. As long as he could unearth all of this, the strength of the Hall of Healing of the Xianqing sect would greatly increase. As a main elder, the sect master was most interested in the opportunity to improve the Xianqing sect. As long as he could increase his strength, it would be a great merit. The merit would offset the fault. Then, the possibility of him taking back his previous position was very high. He might even be able to rise to a higher level because of this. In this way, those elders would definitely not laugh at him anymore. Now that he saw the woman in front of him, he suddenly realized that the reason why Bailey Hongzhuang was able to take out such a poison might have come from this woman. After all, it was impossible for Bailey Hongzhuang to have such superb medical skills at her age. Even the pharmacists of Xianqing sect couldn't compare with her. If he could capture this woman, wouldn't his contribution be even greater? "You're Guosheng?" Granny Hua's gaze locked onto Guosheng. The moment she locked onto him, Guosheng felt as if his entire body was enveloped by a powerful aura. It had been a long time since he had experienced such a feeling. It was a feeling that came from the bottom of his heart. "Who are you?" Guosheng looked at Grandma Hua nervously. He had realized that the woman in front of him was not simple. She was stronger than he had imagined. "Master, that's him." Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze was as cold as ice. She clearly remembered everything that Guosheng had done to her. This damn guy. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Granny Hua's eyes flashed with a cold light. With a wave of her hand, a powerful chi swept across Guosheng's face. A very loud slap sounded. "Huh." Chapter 6446. When the slap landed on his body, Guosheng wanted to run away immediately. Under the cover of that terrifying aura, he found that he didn't even have a chance to escape. The tyrannical air wave was like a mountain, and the moon slapped his face fiercely. At that moment, his blood and chi surged. Guosheng spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face instantly turned pale. "Who are you?" Guosheng's eyes widened as he stared at Granny Hua. With such strength, even in the immortal realm, she must be a famous figure. "You don't deserve to know my name." Granny Hua looked at Guosheng with contempt. "How dare you bully my disciple? You're courting death." "Huh!" Not waiting for Guosheng to react, another terrifying blast of air made him be sent flying out again. However, this slap was stronger than the previous one. It directly made him see stars, and his consciousness blurred. He looked at the people around him angrily. Could it be that these guys just watched him get beaten up? "What are you doing?" Guosheng's heart was filled with anger. However, he was seriously injured, and even his words seemed weak, without the slightest deterrence. The group of alchemists was completely stunned by the scene in front of them. Who would have thought that such a fiend would suddenly barge into the sect and start a fight without saying a word? Although Guosheng's strength wasn't the best among the 13 elders, he was definitely not the worst. However, in front of this senior, he didn't even have the slightest ability to fight back. It could be seen how terrifying this senior's strength was. Who are you? How can you barge into our sect? Granny Hua didn't even have the slightest intention of answering the questions of the alchemists. These guys didn't deserve her answer. Bailey Hongzhuang was also secretly shocked. She realized that she still underestimated her master's strength. That was the sect's restriction that could be broken at any time. The heavily guarded Xin Qing sect was fragile in front of her. The dignified elder was even less of a threat. Once she made a move, the other party didn't even have the strength to fight back. This feeling made Bailey Hongzhuang's heart boil. If he also had this kind of strength, then Guosheng wouldn't treat her like this. Take it. Granny Hua suddenly spoke. Then Bailey Hongzhuang found that there was a whip in front of her. How'd he hit you? Hit him back twice as hard, Granny Hua said coldly. After saying that, Granny Hua was not in a hurry to kill Guosheng. Instead, she stood quietly at the side with her arms crossed in front of her chest. Her expression had already revealed everything. I'm here to see who dares to move. Bailey Hongzhuang was also a little surprised that Granny Hua would ask her to do this. After she reacted, a smile appeared on her face. In the next moment, she walked forward, picked up the long whip, and slowly walked in front of Guosheng. Guosheng watched as Bailey Hongzhuang approached him step by step. His face turned pale. What are you doing? What do you think? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her brows slightly, and her clear eyes revealed a trace of ruthlessness as she asked in reply. This is the Xianqing sect. You'd better leave quickly. Otherwise, once the other elders arrive, you won't be able to leave even if you want to. Guosheng pretended to be fearless, but his voice had inadvertently revealed his guilty conscience and weakness. All he could do now was to stall for time. It was too difficult to resist. Chapter 64-47. Smack! Bailey Hongzhuang did not show any mercy as she swung her whip down fiercely. She had always been a vengeful person. Furthermore, Guo Xiaojie and Guosheng were the ones who had caused all this trouble. Because of them, Xiaohei had been severely injured. Guosheng could not help but tremble as the whip swung down. A bloody gash appeared on his back, and his clothes were quickly dyed red. The intense pain caused Guosheng's face to turn ashen. His malicious gaze stared straight at Bailey Hongzhuang, as if he could not wait to kill her. As an elder of the profound, pure sect, when had he ever suffered such humiliation? An abandoned person who had not even reached the Radiant Sun realm had actually dared to humiliate him in front of everyone. The hatred in his eyes gradually grew. He immediately wanted to charge out and kill Bailey Hongzhuang. Based on how much Deep Beichin and this woman cared about Bailey Hongzhuang, as long as he could control Bailey Hongzhuang's life, the other party would definitely not dare to attack him. However, just as he charged out, a terrifying aura came crashing down on him once again, crushing his entire being. Granny Huan narrowed her eyes as a dim light appeared in her eyes. It seems that you're still not being honest. The terrifying aura was like a mountain crashing down on his body, causing him to spit out another mouthful of blood. Under this terrifying pressure, his internal organs felt like they were about to be crushed into a pulp. His body could not move at all. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally also noticed Guosheng's previous actions. Originally, she wanted to dodge, but she didn't think that her mother-in-law's speed would be even faster. She directly crushed Guosheng and made him unable to move. This kind of power was truly enviable. At the same time, she also felt very blessed to have such a protective master. Smack! The whip swung down again. Smack, smack! With new and old grudges added together, Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to return everything that had happened. Xiaohei was naturally very narrow-minded. This damned old man had tortured them so much earlier. Now that there was a chance, it would not let it go. Under everyone's astonished gazes, Xiaohei's body gradually grew from a small, squishy ball. She calmly ran to the side and fetched a basin of water. Then she took out salt. When they saw Xiao He pour the salt into the water without hesitation and slowly walk to Guo Sheng's side, everyone felt a chill run down their spines. Bailey Hongzhuang, don't go overboard. Guo Sheng gritted his teeth and said angrily, the sect leader will be here soon, and you'll be finished by then. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into an enchanting smile. I don't know if I'm finished, but you're definitely finished. Pa! The long whip fiercely fell on the already bloody back. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that the long whip in her hand was different. Even with Guo Sheng's physique, it was so easy for his skin to split open. His painful appearance was even more indescribable. Are you just watching a show? Guo Sheng's face was pale. Due to the intense pain, cold sweat was dripping down his face. Every time the whip landed, he would tremble uncontrollably. He had almost forgotten how many years it had been since he had last suffered such pain. The group of medicine masters looked at each other. It was not that they did not want to help Guo Sheng, but this granny's power was just too strong. Even Guo Sheng did not have the power to retaliate in half a year. If they were to intervene, they would definitely die. At a time like this, who would dare to rush forward? Wouldn't that be courting death? Chapter 6448. If we join forces, we will definitely be able to save Elder Guo. Medicine Master Ji's expression was solemn. He had taken his antidote a little later than Guo Sheng, so he could only watch the scene unfold before his eyes. Now that he had finally regained his mobility, he naturally couldn't just watch Guo Sheng get beaten to death. An elder of a sect had actually been beaten to death by an abandoned person. This was probably the first time this had happened in the immortal realm. The hesitant medicine masters seemed to have found their backbone when they saw Medicine Master Ji nod his head. They did not delay any longer and charged forward together. However, when faced with the group of medicine masters who had charged forward, a disdainful light appeared in Granny Hua's eyes. She calmly spat out, overconfident. Bang! With a wave of her hand, a terrifying wave of air swept outwards. The group of cultivators who had been charging forward were all sent flying by this terrifying wave of air. At this moment, they finally understood how terrifying the power that Guo Sheng had endured was. This level of power has definitely far surpassed theirs. Since when did the abandoned immortal forest have such a malefic star? Before the medicine masters at the back could charge forward, they saw the cultivators in front of them being sent flying. They paused in their steps, and a thick sense of fear appeared on their faces. They hesitated and did not dare to charge forward. Attack her directly. Medicine Master Ji climbed to his feet. Even though he could not hide the fear on his face, his confidence in saving Guo Sheng was still firm. Hearing this, the medicine masters immediately used all their skills and charged towards Granny Hua. A sense of worry appeared in Deep Beichen's eyes when he saw this. However, Granny Hua gently shook her head, indicating that there was no need to worry. Then, Granny Hua waved her hand, and a restrictive barrier appeared out of thin air. She then ignored the people who were attacking with all their might and turned towards Bailey Hongzhuang in an amiable manner. Don't worry, you can continue. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled upwards. Indeed, with Granny Hua here to hold the fort, there really was nothing to worry about. She thought about how these people had tried all sorts of ways to capture her, and how they could not do anything to her now. The difference between them and her was too obvious. Bang! One attack after another landed on the barrier, but all it did was cause ripples, and there were no signs of it collapsing. Seeing this scene, everyone was completely dumbfounded. Just how strong was this woman? It was actually so terrifying. Xiao He. Bailey Hongzhuang gave Xiao He a look. Xiao He immediately understood and poured the salt water on Guo Sheng. Voila! Under the impact of the salt water, Guo Sheng couldn't help but let out a blood-curdling scream. His body trembled, and the pain was magnified infinitely. He wished he could just faint. However, this terrifying pain stimulated his senses endlessly, preventing him from fainting. Does this feel good? Looking at the trembling Guo Sheng, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly squatted down, her eyes cold and calm. Bailey Hongzhuang. Guosheng stared weakly at Bailey Hongzhuang. Under the pain, even speaking a single word required a great deal of effort. If my guess is correct, Guo Xiaojia had died at your hands, right? Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her phoenix-like eyes. When she had first heard Ling Chuan say that Guo Xiaojia had died at her hands, she felt that it was strange. Guo Xiaojia's madness was within their expectations, but his life had been preserved. Chapter 6449. Guo Xiaojia, who had fallen into madness, should be a disgrace to Guo Sheng, so he ended Guo Sheng's life with his own hands. This kind of thing was unbelievable to many people, but when it happened to Guo Sheng, she didn't find it strange at all. This guy was definitely a vicious and merciless person. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, Guo Sheng and Medicine Master Ji's faces turned pale. The others were a little stunned. Guo Xiaojia had died at the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang. This was the fact that they believed. And Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly said such a thing under such circumstances, so the possibility of this was also increasing. Nonsense. Guo Sheng cursed. Xiaojia clearly died at your hands, so I want to avenge him. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. In the end, who did this? You and I both know very well. Why are you still pretending? When the sect leader and the great elder arrived, they saw this scene. They saw Guo Sheng lying on the ground, his clothes dyed red with blood, and the shocking wound was very shocking. The group of medicine masters was directly blocked outside the restriction, and they couldn't even get close to it. On the contrary, Bailey Hongzhuang was holding a long whip. It was obvious that the injuries on Guo Sheng's body were caused by her. Beside, Bailey Hongzhuang was an unusually handsome man. At a glance, the two of them seemed to be a match made in heaven. However, the two of them were most concerned about the woman sitting leisurely at the side. It was obvious that she was the one who broke the restriction of the Xianqing sect and caused this situation. The sect leader and the great elder were secretly shocked. At this moment, they could only see the back of the woman, but they couldn't see her true appearance. However, to be able to do all this so casually, this kind of strength was definitely not something ordinary people could compare to. Even they had to be careful. Since this person dared to break in here, he must have enough confidence in his own strength. How dare you? Who are you? How dare you cause trouble in our Xianqing sect? The first elder shouted angrily. This person was too bold. He actually dared to come here directly. This was simply provoking the entire Xianqing sect. When Guo Sheng saw the sect leader and great elder appear, he heaved a sigh of relief. This time there was finally hope. The group of pharmacists also relaxed a little. This woman's strength was not something they could contend against, but the sect leader and great elder might have a way. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly turned around and looked at the two people behind her. This was the first time she met the head of the Xianqing sect. Originally, there was no conflict between the two of them, but because of Guo Sheng, this grudge was completely formed. How dare you trespass into my Xianqing sect? Have you thought about the consequences? The sect leader's face was ashen. If he didn't take the other party's life, he wouldn't be the sect leader anymore. The next moment, the sect leader threw a punch at Granny Hua. As soon as the sect leader made his move, a terrifying wave of air also swept out. Bailey Hongzhuang and Div Beichen suddenly had a trace of nervousness in their eyes. Others might not care, but the sect leader of the Xianqing sect was extremely strong. Granny Hua waved her hand and blocked the sect leader's attack. Long time no see. Your strength has increased a lot. Granny Hua slowly turned around, and her gaze fell on the sect leader. Chapter 6450. The sect leader immediately retracted his attack. The dignified look on his face had disappeared and was replaced with respect. I never thought that it would be Senior Hua. I have been disrespectful. The sect leader joined his fists and bowed respectfully. His eyes were filled with fear. You have a good memory, sect leader. You still remember me. The corners of Grandma Hua's lips curled into a small smile, but the smile did not reach her eyes. She was clearly smiling, but it inexplicably gave everyone present a terrifying pressure. I, Xia, will never forget Senior's kindness and will always remember it in my heart. I only hope that one day I will be able to repay your kindness. It's just that I haven't seen any trace of my mother-in-law since then. I feel guilty." The sudden turn of events had exceeded everyone's expectations. The great elder was about to attack when he suddenly noticed the change in the sect leader's attitude. Fortunately, he immediately stopped. No one would have thought that the sect leader would recognize this person. Furthermore, based on the situation, it seems that the sect leader had received a favor from this senior. Guosheng, who had always regarded the sect leader as his savior, was completely dumbfounded. He had always hoped that the sect leader would save him from the abyss of suffering and kill Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. However, this senior had actually done the sect leader a favor. He had never seen the sect leader display such an attitude before. His heart sank. Even an idiot would know that based on the sect leader's attitude, he would definitely not clash with this senior. If that were to happen, his little life would be lost. Grandma Hua, on the other hand, was not too concerned about this. She elegantly sat down and smiled. This person had captured my disciple and tortured her in every possible way. What do you think I should do? The sect leader turned his gaze towards Bailey Hongzhuang. When he had first found out that Bailey Hongzhuang had such abilities, he had felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's identity was not simple and that there must be a powerful person behind her. Now, it seems that his judgment was not wrong at all. However, he never would have thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be Senior Hua's disciple. What a great blessing this was. Senior Hua's reputation was shocking, but she had never accepted a disciple. Bailey Hongzhuang already had such ability at such a young age. In the future, she would definitely make a name for herself in the immortal realm. This person dared to hurt Senior's disciple. Naturally, he deserves to die. The sect leader said with a smile on his face. It was as if the person in front of him was not an elder of the Xianqing sect, but an insignificant stranger. After knowing that this matter was related to Senior Hua, he had given up on Guosheng. If he offended Senior Hua, and come, Senior. The great elder and the group of elders who had just arrived were completely dumbfounded when they saw this scene. How terrifying was this senior's ability to actually make the sect leader's attitude change so drastically? It's good that you know. Grandma Huan nodded indifferently and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Do what you want. Don't worry. Chapter 64:51. In that moment, everyone in the Hall of Healing fell silent. The situation in front of them couldn't be any more obvious. Everyone understood that Guosheng was going to die today. It was fine if he'd wanted to kill Bailey Hongzhuang, but he'd wanted to kidnap her and bring her here. He was seeking his own death. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Guosheng indifferently. She and Xiaohei had pretty much finished venting their anger. There was really no need to waste any more time on this kind of guy. However, it would be too easy for this guy to die, just like that. She'd originally thought that someone like Guo Xiaojie deserved to die, but now she felt that Guosheng was even more detestable than Guo Xiaojie. If it wasn't for her backing, any other person would have died at her hands. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked forward. Guosheng looked at the approaching Bailey Hongzhuang and felt as if the god of death was approaching him. He hurriedly called out, "Don't come here, don't come here." That anxious and pale voice seemed to have no meaning. Bailey Hongzhuang walked in front of him and reached out to feed him a pill. Gulp. Bailey Hongzhuang pinched Guosheng's chin and forced the pill into his stomach, not allowing him to refuse. Ugh, cough, cough. No matter how hard Guosheng tried to spit it out, it was useless. The pill melted as soon as it entered his mouth. There was no way to reverse the situation. Medicine Master Ji also quietly retreated from the crowd of medicine masters when he saw this scene. Guosheng was going to die, without a doubt. If he continued to stay here, he might not be able to keep his own life. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed Medicine Master Ji's departure, but didn't take it to heart. This guy didn't have any deep grudges with them. He wasn't involved in the previous incident either, so there was no need to kill him. Deep Beichun naturally noticed as well, but he respected Hongzhuang's decision. Granny, I've taken care of it. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Granny Hua. Her peerless face rippled with an elegant and refined smile. At first, the crowd had only thought of Bailey Hongzhuang as a star of misfortune. Now that they took a closer look, they realized that Bailey Hongzhuang was truly a lotus that had emerged from clear water. She was a natural sculpture. Such a beauty was truly breathtaking. Granny Huan nodded gently, then stood up. Since it's settled, let's go. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Bei Chen immediately walked behind Grandma Hua. The purpose of their trip was to solve Guosheng. Now that everything had been solved, it was time to leave. However, when the sect leader saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was about to leave, he quickly said, "Senior Hua, this matter is due to my incompetence. If you leave like this, I really feel guilty. Why don't I give this small token of my apology to Lady Bailey? I hope you'll accept it." The sect master smiled and handed a Qinquan bag to Bailey Hongzhuang. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang instinctively looked at Granny Hua. She didn't know what kind of relationship Granny Hua and the sect master had in the past. The sect master had only taken out this item for Granny Hua's sake. Granny Hua glanced at it calmly and said, "Since it's a token of the sect master's goodwill, Hongzhuang, you should accept it." "Yes, master." Bailey Hongzhuang took the Qinquan bag. Anything that the sect master had taken out would definitely not be simple. This time, she had already obtained a few treasures from the resource room. If she were to include this, it would be a bountiful harvest. Chapter 6452. At some unknown time, the area around the Hall of Healing was filled with cultivators. Everyone wanted to know what the final outcome would be. These three were simply too arrogant. The head and elders have already rushed over. They should have already subdued them. But I've been here for quite a while. Why haven't I heard anything? Logically speaking, it shouldn't be so peaceful. The crowd of disciples couldn't help but be curious. Such calmness really didn't look like a big fight. However, the next scene completely destroyed their worldview. This was because everyone saw the three figures walk out of the Hall of Healing unscathed. They walked out. Everyone stared with wide eyes, their hearts filled with disbelief. Could it be that the head and elders weren't a match for this old lady? When the crowd saw the head and first elder send off Bailey Hongzhuang and the others with smiles on their faces, they didn't know what to say anymore. Is there something wrong with my eyes? You didn't see wrong. My God, how strong is Bailey Hongzhuang's backer? Under the flabbergasted gazes of countless disciples, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked out of the Xianqing sect unhurriedly and leisurely. Ling Chuan's heart thumped. When no one was paying attention, he quietly gave Bailey Hongzhuang a thumbs up. Amazing. This was really a cheat. The head and first elder only returned to the Hall of Healing after Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had left. Guosheng, who'd been beaten until he was covered in wounds, howled with a savage expression. It was obvious that the effects of the pill had been quite frightening. "Head, what do we do with Guosheng now?" The first elder inquired. The head waved his hand in disgust. "Drag him away and bury him." Everyone's hearts trembled when they heard these words. The first elder waved his hand, and someone dragged Guosheng away. "Bury him further away." The head's voice sounded again. The two disciples dragging Guosheng also nodded. Bright red blood stained the ground. Contrasting with the sect leader's expressionless face, the atmosphere became gloomy and oppressive for no reason. No one dared to breathe loudly. They felt as if an invisible hand was squeezing their hearts, as if it could crush them at any time. "Sect leader, what is the background of that, Granny? You actually need to treat me with such an attitude?" The first elder was the sect master's trusted aide. Even if no one dared to speak up, he still dared to ask. "You haven't seen her before, but you must have heard of her name." The sect leader slowly looked up. His eyes were dark and unfathomable, as if he was recalling memories from many years ago. "She is the holy poison doctor, Grandma Hua." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone could not help but gasp. Everyone who had their heads lowered could not help but raise their heads. Their faces were filled with astonishment and disbelief. Most of the people present were medicine masters. Perhaps they had not heard of some of the peerless experts, but the great name of the holy poison doctor, Grandma Hua, was deeply engraved in their hearts. It's said that the holy poison doctor's skills in medicine and poison have reached the pinnacle of perfection. She can even raise bones and revive the dead. Many have wanted to become her disciple, but were rejected. However, after that incident, Grandma Hua disappeared without a trace. No one has been able to find her. Chapter 6453. That's right, it's her. The sect master's dull voice was filled with certainty. Back then, I was plotted against and painstakingly searched for Granny Hua. It was because she saved me that I was able to survive. Hearing this, everyone understood everything. Before they knew Granny Hua's identity, they thought the sect master's actions were a little too cowardly. Now that they understood everything, they only felt that the sect master's decision was too wise. How famous was Granny Hua? Even though she had been missing all these years, no one in the entire immortal realm would forget her name. The group of pharmacists even regarded Granny Hua as a role model. It wasn't until they saw Granny Hua's strength that they realized that not only was Granny Hua's medical and poison skills powerful, but her strength was also extremely powerful. So, Guosheng will undoubtedly die. The sect master's voice was calm, and there was not the slightest ripple in his eyes. If he had known that Guosheng had offended Granny Hua, then there was no need for Granny Hua to appear. He would have already dealt with Guosheng himself. No one doubted that with Granny Hua's means, not to mention Guosheng, even if she wanted to kill the entire Xianqing sect cultivators, it would be a simple matter. Sect Master, Granny Hua should have calmed down by now, right? Second Elder couldn't help but show worry on his face. Although the Sect Master had tried his best to make up for it, no one knew if such a great fiend would still hold a grudge in her heart. If that was the case, then almost everyone's hearts began to waver. They couldn't bear to part with the Xianqing sect, but they couldn't bear to part with their lives even more. The Sect Master's gaze swept across everyone before he said, "Don't worry. Granny Hua has always been clear about gratitude and grudges. Since she said that this debt has been settled, then there should be no problem." He was actually very worried about this matter, but fortunately, the situation shouldn't be too bad. Facing the Sect Master's calm and composed gaze, the originally anxious people calmed down and stopped their panicked thoughts. This matter didn't happen. Don't casually spread the news of Granny Hua's appearance. Otherwise, once it spreads, if you lose your life, don't blame me for not saving you. Everyone's heart trembled, and they lowered their heads again. They felt the scene of Granny Hua's attack very clearly. In the face of such a peerless powerhouse, they didn't even have the strength to fight back. They were all smart people and naturally knew what could be said and what could not be said. They would definitely not make such a mistake. However, they couldn't help but feel a little regretful that their idol had left in front of them just like that. If he had the opportunity to consult Granny Hua, it would be a great blessing in his life. For a moment, Bailey Hongzhuang had become the target of envy for all the pharmacists. It was no wonder that she could give them such a huge problem the moment she made a move. If he were to meet Bailey Hongzhuang again in the future, her methods would definitely become even more terrifying. After leaving Xianqing sect, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun followed Granny Hua all the way to the gate of the immortal realm. Everyone is worried about you, but there are too many of us. Granny only brought me in, the others are waiting outside. Looking at the beautiful face in front of him, Di Beichun's eyes revealed a trace of pity. Chapter 6454. Granny, are we leaving now? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the kind figure in front of her. Unlike the cold and ruthless attitude she had towards the cultivators of Xianqing sect, Granny Hua had returned to her usual kind appearance. That appearance clearly didn't have the slightest lethality. She was as kind as an ordinary old woman. However, anyone who had heard of Granny Hua's reputation would know how ruthless and heartless this kind granny in front of them could be once she made a move. If you want to stay here and take a look, that's fine. Granny Hua smiled faintly. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Let's go back first. There will be plenty of opportunities to see the immortal region in the future. However, I heard Guosheng say that he seems to have arranged for people near the gate of the immortal region. I wonder if Xiren and the others will be in danger. We already found those people when we came here. They've already been dealt with. Di Baichen's clear voice cut through Bailey Hongzhuang's heart and took away her worries. That's good. Bailey Hongzhuang breathed a sigh of relief and smiled as she held Di Baichen's hand. Let's go back quickly. Outside the immortal region, Xiren and the others paced back and forth outside the gate. They couldn't hide the worry on their faces. How do you think Granny Hua and the others will save Hongzhuang? They won't just barge in, right? When Xiren looked worried. Although they also knew that it would take a long time to reach the Xianqing sect, waiting here was really like waiting for a year. No, it was like waiting for a minute, and a second was like a year. Granny Hua's strength is high. It shouldn't be a problem. Mo Yunjue's eyes were as deep as ink. His ice-cold face didn't have the slightest breath of the mortal world. However, just by observing his eyes, one could still see a trace of extreme worry. As early as the moment he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was taken away, his heart had never been at ease. However, he firmly believed that Hongzhuang would come back safe and sound. I hope they can come back soon. Waiting like this is too torturous. Shangguan Yingying's face was bitter. When she thought that Hongzhuang might be abused, she was so anxious that she wanted to cry. Just as everyone was panicking, a lazy voice that sounded like the sound of nature slowly rang out not far away. I'm back. A stunningly beautiful woman wearing a simple and elegant moon-colored dress slowly appeared in front of everyone. Under the bright sunlight, that almost flawless and stunning face exuded an enchanting luster, instantly lighting up everyone's eyes. Mo Yunjue and the others were all pleasantly surprised. In the next moment, everyone rushed forward like a swarm of bees, surrounding Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang, you're finally back. Shangguan Yingying held Bailey Hongzhuang's soft hand, and the tension in her heart finally dissipated at this moment. You've worried us to death. At this moment, that flawless and beautiful face revealed an apologetic expression. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was as pleasant as a stream. I've made everyone worry about me. As long as you can come back safely, that Guosheng is really too hateful. Bali Yanche breathed a sigh of relief. His originally dim eyes regained their usual luster. Mo Yunjia, who had been silent all this time, faintly said, That guy, is he dead? The cold voice was like a 10,000-year-old ice that couldn't be melted. Everyone around could feel the strong, killing intent in this calm voice. Chapter 6455. Abandoned Immortal Forest. When everyone returned to their residence, they found that other than the 3 seniors they were familiar with, Meng Buchuan was also here. You're back. Hearing the commotion outside, Huashu Kong and the others walked out of the house and looked at everyone with a smile. That calm look, it was as if they had already expected this result. Hongzhuang, you have to be more careful in the future. Huashu Kong looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a faint smile. You, Granny Hua, haven't been to the immortal region for many years. This time, she made an exception for you. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced sideways and thought of the Xianqing sect master's frightened expression. She understood that Granny Hua must be a famous figure in the immortal region. Even if the Xianqing sect wasn't a big sect, the sect master naturally had some strength. She could clearly see that Granny Hua showed such an expression. It was fear from the bottom of her heart. Zhongli Mu and the others looked at Bailey Hongzhuang curiously. They also wanted to know what Granny Hua did in the Xianqing sect. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Master is very strong. Once she attacked, she suppressed the others until they couldn't move. Those guys from the Xianqing sect can be dealt with easily. What's there to say? Granny Hua obviously didn't care about this at all. Instead, she looked at everyone seriously. This incident can be considered a lesson for you. You have to be more careful in the future. You can't let these things happen again. Fortunately, Hongzhuang's ability to escape is very strong. Otherwise, if she was controlled, she might not be so lucky. Meng Buchuan's eyes revealed a trace of curiosity. Granny Hua, from what you said, could it be that this girl escaped by herself? Of course. Granny Hua's face revealed a trace of a smile. It was a relief from the bottom of her heart. When Beichun and I arrived, Hongzhuang had already escaped by herself. Not only that, she also blew up Guosheng's residence and poisoned him. If that guy wasn't lucky, I didn't have to do anything. He would have been poisoned to death by Hong Zhuang. As soon as he said that, Shangguan Yingying and the others sighed with emotion. This guy's really not human. Apart from her, there was probably no one else who could cause such a huge commotion after being captured. Zhongli Xiao ran, and the others immediately thought highly of Bailey Hongzhuang. To be able to do this at such a young age, it was indeed not something an ordinary young person could do. Since you're back, we have good news for you. Yu Hong smiled. He wasn't too worried about Bailey Hongzhuang. Just by looking at the girl's complexion, he could tell that she was recovering well and that her injuries weren't serious. Moreover, with Granny Hua around, even if she was injured, she would be able to recover very quickly. What good news! Everyone looked up, their faces filled with curiosity. Old Man Zhong Li and Old Man Meng are preparing to take Beichen and Yunju as disciples respectively to see whose disciple is better. Yu Hong smiled as he looked at Zhongli Xiao Ran and Meng Buchuan behind him. These two old men's abilities aren't weak. Back then, who knows how many little fellows wanted to learn from them. Such a good opportunity, the two of you can't miss it. It's best if you learn their skills so that when you walk the Jianghu in the future, you'll be able to take charge. Chapter 6456. When Di Xiaofeng and the others heard this news, they secretly sighed. Could this be considered a predestined fate? Di Beichen and Yunju were good friends, but that didn't change the fact that they were rivals in love. Senior Zhong Li had always been the strongest among the four seniors. Since Senior Meng's strength had always been on par with him, it meant that Senior Meng's strength was also astonishing. Now that he had chosen two people as his disciples, it could be said that their fate was deep. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the two of them in surprise, then revealed a bright smile. Why aren't you two greeting your masters? After such a long time, the conflict between the two had already been opened. This was just a bet between the two seniors. As long as their strength could be improved, this was already the best result. Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue looked at each other, and a faint smile appeared on their incomparably handsome faces. In an instant, a smile like a glacier, like the spring of March. In the next moment, the two turned to their masters and respectfully bowed. Greetings, masters. Zhongli Xiao Ran and Meng Buchuan also stopped their previous quarrel at this moment, and a satisfied smile appeared on their faces. Although accepting these two little guys as disciples was also part of a competition, they definitely wouldn't accept them as disciples just because of this. It was more because they felt that these two little guys were moldable talents. Di Xiaofeng's eyes were filled with joy. Granny Hua's strength was enough to enter and leave a sect unimpeded. Senior Zhong Li was even stronger than Granny Hua, so there was no need to mention his strength. Although Senior Zhong Li would occasionally give a few pointers, it was only pointers. Once he became a master, it would be a true teaching. The two were completely different situations. After Meng Buchuan accepted Mo Yunjue as his disciple, he originally wanted to bring Mo Yunjue back to his residence. Back then, Yu Hong and the others had also invited Meng Buchuan to stay with them. However, because Meng Buchuan and Zhongli Xiaoran's temperaments were not compatible, they would inevitably have some conflicts every time. That was why they did not stay together. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had been training together for so long. Naturally, they didn't want Mo Yunjue to go to such a faraway place. Even though they were all in the abandoned immortal forest, it would still take a few days to get there. Since these little fellows have been cultivating together, in my opinion, Old Man Meng, you might as well stay here, Granny Hua slowly said. Hearing this, Meng Buchuan frowned. Originally, he really did not have such a plan. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other, and then turned to look at Zhongli Xiaoran. The biggest reason why Senior Meng didn't want to stay here was probably because of Senior Zhong Li. If Senior Zhong Li didn't agree, then Senior Meng definitely wouldn't stay. Feeling everyone's gaze, Zhongli Xiaoran said, "Yes, we're full here. If you want to stay, then build your own house." Although he was still a bit unwilling, it was obvious that he had agreed. Everyone was overjoyed when they saw this. As long as Senior Meng stayed here, Even if they didn't become his disciples, they might be able to learn a few moves. Following such a senior, as long as they could learn a few trump cards, it would be enough. As Zhongli Shaoran left, Meng Buchuan's gaze also fell on Mo Yunjue. Chapter 6457. Granny Hua, Yu Hong, Huashu Kong. He had long guessed that this guy was so lazy that it was absolutely impossible for him to do it himself. But wasn't this too natural? Master, leave it to me. Mo Yunjue nodded. Meng Buchuan showed a satisfied smile. Master, let me tell you, although I was neck and neck with old man Zhongli, in fact, everyone knew that I was stronger than him. It was only because this old man's personality was weird that everyone didn't want to offend him, so they said that we were neck and neck. Granny Hua and the others held their foreheads. This guy's shameless look was really painful to the eyes. So, my disciple, you definitely don't want me to live in a place worse than old man Zhongli, right? Meng Buchuan looked at Mo Yunjue with a smile. The little stars shining in his eyes very well expressed his inner expectations. Sure enough, what he said before was nonsense. This was Meng Buchuan's real purpose. Master, rest assured, disciple will do his best. Mo Yunjue didn't feel that there was any problem with this request. It was his blessing that his master was willing to teach him. Now he only needed to build a house. It was really not difficult. After leaving the house, Mo Yunjue quickly began to build Meng Buchuan's house near Granny Hua and the others. When Xiren and the others saw this, they naturally couldn't let Mo Yunjue build it alone. Although it wasn't a magnificent house, it would still take a lot of time for one person to build it. However, with their help, the speed would inevitably be greatly accelerated. Meng Buchuan looked at Mo Yunjue and the others who were sweating like rain not far away, comfortably leaning on the recliner while waving a fan, very satisfied. It's good to be young. Look at these little guys. No matter what they do, they're full of enthusiasm. Looking at Meng Buchuan's proud look, Granny Hua and the others were speechless. This guy's character really didn't change at all after so many years. While the men were busy building the house, Bailey Hongzhuang, Bailey Yinyin, and the others began to prepare today's lunch. Fortunately, this time, in order to please Senior Meng, we have bought almost all the household utensils we might need. After the house is built, we only need to put the things in. The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. She had originally thought that there were still so many things in the chaos ring, but she didn't know where to put them. Now, they all had a use. I don't know what Senior Meng used to do, but just from his appearance, I feel that he's not simple. Ling revealed a rare look of curiosity. Once Senior Zhongli and Senior Meng began to seriously instruct them, Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue's strength would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. Zhongli Mu looked at the model of the house and couldn't help but look at Zhongli Shaoran. Grandpa, Senior Meng's house seems to be bigger than the one we live in now. Zhongli Mu then looked at the place where they were staying. It was obvious that he could see the size of the place from the frame. Hearing this, Zhongli Shaoran couldn't help but frown. Then he heard Meng Buchuan's proud voice not far away. I'm a person, I don't care about other things, but this place must be bigger than old man Zhongli's place. Only this is worthy of my status. Don't you think so? Chapter 6458. Yu Hong, Huashu Kong. Granny Hua looked at the two speechless people and could not help but say, Did we make a mistake in letting old man Meng live here? Yu Hong and Huashu Kong turned to look at her with a look of certainty. If they had known this would happen, they would have let old man Meng bring Mo Yunjue to his place. Although there was some distance, it would only take some time. However, with old man Meng here, there would be sparks between him and old man Zhongli every day. I have a feeling that old man Zhongli will not sit still and wait for his death. Yu Hong raised his eyebrows with a complicated expression. However, just as Yu Hong finished speaking, Zhongli Shaoran's voice was heard. I have lived in this house for some years, and it has not been maintained for many years. It is rather inconvenient. Since you're building a house now, why don't you rebuild mine too? With that, Zhongli Shaoran gave Zhongli Mu a look. Zhongli Mu immediately understood and shouted, Brother D, my grandfather wants to rebuild his house. Di Beichun was helping Mo Yunjue build his house. When he heard Zhongli Mu's words, a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. He slowly walked in front of Zhongli Xiaoran and cupped his hands. Master, you want to build a house? Zhongli Xiaoran nodded slightly and looked at Meng Buchuan from the corner of his eyes. I'm not comfortable living in this house now. I want to build a bigger house. Yes, master. How could Di Beichun not understand that his master was competing with Senior Meng? In fact, when he heard Senior Meng deliberately say those words to his master, he already had this premonition in his heart. At this moment, he did not find it strange at all. Since his master needed it, as his disciple, he would build it. Meng Buchuan saw that Zhongli Xiaoran wanted to build a house for no reason and was immediately displeased. Old man Zhongli, you have lived in this house for so many years. Isn't fine? I want to build a new one. Is there a problem? Zhongli Xiaoran's face was calm. Obviously, he would not admit that he was competing with Meng Buchuan. Meng Buchuan narrowed his eyes at Zhongli Xiaoran. You are still the same old fox. Not as good as you. I knew it. Yu Hong spread out his hands. He was no stranger to such a lively scene. Back then, they had also spent their days in such an environment. Granny Hua facepalmed. If it weren't for the two old men in front of me, I would really think that they were a couple. You hit the nail on the head. Hu Shukong nodded. After all these years, your foresight is still as accurate as ever. Granny Hua was speechless. During the construction of the house, Zhongli Xiaoran and Meng Bukun had become supervisors. No matter what the matter was, the two of them would compete. This made the younger generation suffer. When Xiren and the others complained incessantly, saying that it was impossible to live like this. Di Beichun and Mo Yunjue had a tacit understanding. The two of them decided to build the two houses exactly the same. This way, the two seniors wouldn't have anything to argue about. However, when they carried out this plan, the two seniors strongly opposed it. Even so, under the two's insistence, the two identical buildings were completed. Chapter 64-59. In the end, Zhongli Xiaoran and Meng Buchuan accepted it. When Xiren and the others cried out in relief, they could finally be at ease now. This was just building a house. They felt more tired than going out to train. At the same time, they saw how scary the two seniors could be when they were serious. Di Xiaofeng patted Di Beichun's shoulder. Second brother, I'm afraid it'll be hard on you in the future. Di Beichun, Yu Hong and the other two had been in seclusion for the past few days with the intention of out of sight, out of mind. They didn't show their faces until they heard that the house had been completed. Only then did they come out of the house. Hu Shukong could not help but nod when he saw the identical layout and furnishings in the two houses. The two of you are quite capable. Hearing this, Di Beichun and Mo Yunjue couldn't help but sigh. They had no choice. Thankfully, after the house was finished, Zhongli Xiaoran and Meng Buchuan split up to teach Di Beichun and Mo Yunjue. This reduced the conflict. During the day, everyone cultivated together. During the night, Di Beichun and Mo Yunjue learned from their masters. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, a year had passed. In this year, Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichun, and Mo Yunjue all broke through to the Radiant Sun stage. Xiren and the rest were only a step away. Don't look down on the first level. It took a lot of effort to break through. Now, everyone understood that the speed of cultivation couldn't be compared to before. It took a lot of time to break through to the next level. Now, they didn't have anyone to compare themselves to. So, they didn't know if their cultivation speed was slow in the immortal domain. The only thing they knew was that Zhongli Mu was younger than them, but his cultivation was higher than theirs. On this day, the five seniors called everyone together. I'll give you 1 month. Those who haven't broken through to the Radiant Sun stage have to use this 1 month to break through. Everyone was stunned when they heard the news. They didn't understand why the seniors would suddenly give them such a mission. Senior, is something the matter? Xiren couldn't help but ask. Meng Buchuan continued. You've been learning from us for a long time. Cultivating in seclusion all day will only increase your strength. Since you're young, you should go out and take a look. Otherwise, if you stay here for too long, I'm afraid you won't be able to adapt to the law of the jungle." The moment these words were spoken, everyone's hearts could not help but tremble. During this period of time, they had been living too comfortably. Although there were cultivators in the forsaken immortal forest, as they gradually reached the radiant sun stage, no one came to find trouble with them. What's more, they didn't dress like people from the abandoned immortal forest, so most cultivators thought they were from the immortal region. Even if they didn't slack off on their cultivation, they had to admit that they were much more comfortable than before. If this continued, they wouldn't be much different from those people who cultivated in a greenhouse. So, I'll give you 1 month. If you break through to the radiant sun stage in 1 month, you can leave together. If you can't, then the others will leave together. Chapter 64-60. Once the others left, the ones who were left behind were the ones who were truly depressed. Looking at the serious expressions of the seniors, they knew that they were serious and not joking. Bailey Union's face was pale. Out of everyone, she was the weakest, so she was under the most pressure. If Di Xiaofeng and the others left, then she would be the only one left behind. That was something she didn't want to see. The 5 seniors clearly didn't plan to discuss this with them. After making their decision, they only said that they didn't need to cultivate with them for a month. Everyone was free to do whatever they wanted. Then they left. "Yin Yin, we have to do our best." Shangwan Yingying looked at Bailey Yunyan. In fact, she had the same feeling as Yunyan. Beichen and Hong Zhuang had already broken through. For them, this wasn't a problem. Bailey Yunyan looked nervous. "I've already sensed that I'm about to break through the barrier. No matter what, I have to break through this month." "I've sensed it too. Speaking of which, I've sensed it for a while now. But even though I sensed it, I still haven't broken through." Shangwan Yingying sighed. This barrier had been holding her back for a few months. She had always wanted to break through as soon as possible. Unfortunately, this barrier was extremely difficult to break through. There hadn't been any movement. "We've been too comfortable these past few years. Back then, we said we were going to the immortal realm of chaos. Unknowingly, so much time has passed." Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were deep, and her charming face was filled with helplessness. As a cultivator, once they settled down, their cultivation speed would drop. Just like many elders of sects, after making a name for themselves, they would stay in a certain power. Over time, they would get used to living a leisurely life. Even if this didn't mean they didn't work hard, they would still be affected. "Isn't it good to go to the immortal realm of chaos?" The magnetic voice was filled with coldness and interest. The man's thin lips looked fickle and ascetic. His pair of cold eyes were untainted by a speck of dust. Faintly, they revealed an innate nobility and arrogance. Everyone couldn't help but look over. Even though they had been looking at this face all day long, they still couldn't help but admit that this fellow's appearance was truly monstrous after the 5 seniors made their decision. Shangwan Yingying and the others were busy cultivating. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others who had already broken through were still cultivating step by step. It was just that they put more effort into learning from their master. Not only were the cultivators in the realm of chaos powerful, but their abilities were also outstanding. If he didn't have any self-defense skills, he wouldn't feel at ease. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully listened to Grandma Hua's teachings. Now, her medical and poison skills had greatly improved. She already knew all the spiritual herbs in the immortal domain, and with Granny Hua's guidance, even if there was no one to compare with, she believed that her art of medicine and poison should be pretty good. Back then, she had always thought that her medical skills were already very good. However, after learning from Grandma Hua, she realized that there were still many things that she had missed out on. Once these brain circuits were figured out, they could often achieve astonishing results. Chapter 64-61. 1 month later, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others gathered together again. However, this time, there was one person missing. Yin hasn't come out yet? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows wrinkled slightly, a trace of worry in her glass-like eyes. Today was the day of the 1-month deadline. Shangwan Ying had successfully broken through a few days ago. Even Xiao Xuanzi had seized the opportunity to break through. Although they didn't think that the seniors would stop them from taking their contracted beasts, Yunyan is still in seclusion. Di Xiaofeng was worried. Yunyan has been under a lot of pressure recently. I don't dare to disturb her. This 1-month deadline is indeed too difficult for Yunyan. Ling'er's voice was as cold as ever. I wonder if she can break through today. If Yunyan could break through today, they could leave together. However, if she didn't, everyone could imagine how sad Yunyan's expression would be. Granny Hua and the others also walked out. After noticing the situation in front of them, they understood. You guys did well. At least someone managed to break through. Granny Hua smiled kindly. Are you guys ready to go to the immortal realm of chaos? Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but look in Bailey Yunyan's direction. Only then did they say, we're ready. In this 1 month, whether it was pills, poisons, or talismans, everyone had done their best to prepare a lot. After all, once they left, no one knew what would happen. It was better to be prepared. Not only that, Bailey Hongzhuang even prepared a lot of explosives. When she was at the Xinqing sect, she felt that these explosives were very effective. Who knew when they would be useful? Moreover, ever since Nangong Wu started researching explosives in the D family, the power of these explosives had increased by leaps and bounds. There were many talents in the D family. Naturally, there were many people who were interested in this field. As a result, Nangong Yu was like a tiger that had grown wings. Every day, he would discuss with everyone how to improve the power of these explosives. Today, these explosives had become the symbol of the D family. Even the entire upper realm was in a frenzy. Many forces had started researching how to make these explosives. The fact that these explosives could be so effective with such a small cost was already very impressive. Most importantly, when the enemy was unknowingly using these explosives, they could achieve unexpected results. Since Yunyan hasn't broken through to the Radiant Sun realm, you guys should leave tomorrow. Yu Hong sighed. Originally, according to their judgment, Bailey Yunyan's strength was indeed slightly weaker. This was because her foundation was relatively weak when she first arrived. After such a long period of cultivation, Yunyan's strength was much stronger than before. This month's deadline was set, but in the end there was still a gap. Hearing this, Di Xiaofeng's face turned pale. He could not help but ask, Yunyan is only a step away from breaking through to the Radiant Sun realm. Can we take her with us? No. Meng Buchuan shook his head. You have never been to the chaotic immortal domain. There are absolutely no cultivators below the Radiant Sun realm there. Of the immortal S was. Chapter 64-62. If a cultivator from the abandoned immortal forest has not reached the Radiant Sun stage, it means that they are abandoned people. Abandoned people will be targeted in the chaotic immortal domain. When the time comes, any one of them will attack you. Do you think you can protect her? Zhong Li Xiaoran's face was extremely cold. His eyes were as cold as ice, without a trace of humanity. When it came to matters like this, he never cared about feelings. Because if he backed down on this matter, it would not be for their own good. Instead, it would be harming them. Everyone immediately understood the severity of the situation. This situation was also out of their expectations. If this was really the case, then it would be too dangerous for Yunyan to follow them. This meant that she could only stay in the Chaos Ring and could not travel with them. This was also a form of harm. Di Xiaofeng's face showed a trace of loneliness. When he brought Yunyan here, he never thought of parting ways. But now, don't think too much about it. Pack up and leave tomorrow. Granny Hua said. Just as everyone was feeling dejected, suddenly, an aura came from not far away. Feeling this aura, the originally regretful people all raised their heads. Di Xiaofeng's dim eyes suddenly lit up and released a dazzling light. This is Yunyan broke through? Sensing the aura of a breakthrough, everyone who was originally worried felt completely relieved. Now, they could finally set off with peace of mind. The 5 seniors were also surprised. They did not expect this girl to be able to break through at the last moment. She must have done her best. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest bade farewell to the 5 seniors and left for the chaotic immortal domain. After being together for so long, they were all reluctant to leave. However, Zhong Limu was the one who was the most reluctant to leave. Zhong Limu grew up in the abandoned immortal forest and had never left alone. The only time he spent a long time was at the devouring spirit mine. Now that he was going to the chaotic immortal domain, it was obvious that he would not be able to return anytime soon. Zhong Lixiao ran was as calm as ever, as if he did not have any emotional fluctuations. He did not feel the slightest bit of reluctance. However, from his deep and unfathomable eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang could still see a trace of worry. Not to mention that Zhong Lixiao Ran had directly turned around after he bid farewell. Presumably, he was worried that he would be unable to restrain himself from revealing his emotions. Do you think we will be able to see Feng Qing in the chaotic immortal domain? Xiren's face was full of curiosity. If it was not for Feng Qing, they would not have been able to leave and obtain so many devouring spirit stones. So much time had passed, and they did not know if Feng Qing immortal domain. If we are fated, we will meet. Mo Yunjue said, "The plan that the seniors have made for us is really strange. They actually want us to train separately." Ling had a puzzled look on her face. Originally, they had planned to set off together. After all, everyone was used to being together. They never thought that the seniors would give them such a mission before they set off. I can understand that. Emperor Xiao Feng understood. We have so many people. Even if we aren't strong, we have the advantage in numbers. Chapter 64-63. Upon hearing Di Xiaofeng's words, everyone couldn't help but look at their team. Indeed, there were quite a few of them. It was said that most of the cultivators in the realm of chaotic immortals went there alone. Of course, many of them had joined forces in the realm of chaotic immortals. It was rare to see a group of people go there together. It just so happens that our team is even. 2 people in a team. It's quite suitable. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. Only by obtaining an identity token in the realm of chaotic immortal could they truly enter the realm of chaotic immortal. She was looking forward to entering the realm of chaotic immortal. Looking at the majestic gate of the realm of chaotic immortal, everyone's eyes were filled with awe. When they first saw the gate of the realm of chaotic immortal, they had the same feeling. However, the gate of the realm of chaotic immortal was not smaller than the gate of the realm of chaotic immortal. However, the gate of the realm of chaotic immortal was more formal, while the gate of the realm of chaotic immortal was more casual. This was the difference between the 2 places. Di Beichen's peerless face had a hint of seriousness. Once we enter the realm of chaotic immortal, we have to be careful. The cultivators here are not weak, and their attacks are even more ruthless. Don't let your guard down. Everyone nodded. They didn't underestimate the realm of chaotic immortal at all. This place was full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. It was not an easy task to gain a foothold here. We've been traveling for so many days, and we're travel-worn. Why don't we go in and have a parting meal first? When Xiren suddenly suggested, we won't be able to be together every day if we're temporarily separated. Seeing him pretending to be sad, Bailey Yinshe slowly said, "You're just hungry, aren't you?" "Nonsense," Xiren said seriously. "I'm doing this for our friendship. We have to follow Grandpa's rules." Zhong Limu's face was serious. It seemed like he was going to follow Grandpa's instructions to the end. "Zhongli, you're too serious." Xiren waved his hand. "It's just a meal. It's not a big deal." "No," Zhong Limu refused. "Xiren, Zhong Limu, I'll tell Grandpa when I get back." "I didn't say anything. How could I, a person who listens to the teachings of my elders, not listen to their arrangements? Actually, I just want to test you. You passed." Everyone, Zhong Limu had an innocent look on his face. "So that's how it is. I knew Brother Wen wasn't that kind of person. Everyone, wasn't this guy a little too gullible?" Di Beichen patted Mo Yunjue's shoulder. "Keep an eye on him. Your mission is more important than ours." Although Zhong Limu's cultivation was stronger, this was the first time this little fellow had gone out to train. There were many things that he did not understand. He needed someone to guide him from the side. Otherwise, Mo Yunjue's expression was calm. At least his fighting strength is not bad. He should be able to protect himself. Everyone couldn't help but look at Mo Yunjue. Actually, it would have been fine if Zhong Li Mu followed anyone else, but he had to follow Mo Yunjue. One had to know that Mo Yunjue was a man of few words. Zhong Li Mu was so gullible. If Mo Yunjue didn't tell him, the scene would be unbearable just thinking about it. Yunjue, it's fine if you say a few more words to this guy, Di Xiaofeng said. Okay, Di Xiaofeng. Chapter 64-64. As everyone entered the realm of chaotic immortals, Bailey Hongzhuang looked up at the man beside her. Di Beichen also turned his head to the side. His eyes were filled with gentleness. Let's go. He skillfully held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand with his big hand. Her smooth skin and soft touch made the corners of his lips curl up. Bailey Hongzhuang also looked at their intertwined hands. Every time Di Beichen held her hand, she felt at ease. As the two of them walked into the realm of chaotic immortals, they felt that many people were looking at them. They were sizing them up. They were not unfamiliar with such a situation. When they went to the bloody ground abyss, the people around them looked at them the same way. According to their judgment, the situation in the realm of chaotic immortals should be similar to the bloody ground abyss. It was a place where the strong preyed on the weak. The weak were destined to have no place to live. The newcomers were the prey in everyone's eyes. Unless you displayed great strength, no one would dare to touch you. Otherwise, you could become the prey of others at any time. At this moment, these people were sizing them up to see if they would be the next prey. Even though they could feel these gazes clearly, the two of them ignored them and walked in leisurely. The city of the realm of chaotic immortals was very spacious. Even the road was unexpectedly wide. At this moment, many people were walking on this road. They looked very ordinary, but they could vaguely see a trace of hostility in their subtle expressions. To be able to survive here, these fellows must have killed a lot of people. Bailey Hongzhuang looked up at Di Beichen with a bright smile on her face. Beichen, where are we going now? Grumble. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look at her stomach. She ate with her mother-in-law and the others every day. She had become used to it. Di Beichen chuckled. Layers of laughter fell from his deep eyes like petals. Let's go and eat. Looking at the man's doting and handsome smile, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. And, after finding a random restaurant, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen sat down in the main hall of the restaurant. However, when they sat down, they realized that Zhongli Mu and Mo Yunjue were not far from them. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. I didn't expect Yunju and Zhongli to be here too. What should we do? Di Beichen's eyes were calm. We didn't come here on purpose. We just happened to run into each other. Let's just pretend we don't know each other. We won't go against Master's instructions. That makes sense. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Since it was mealtime, everyone naturally came to eat. A chance encounter naturally didn't count. Braised eggplant, sweet and sour pork. Di Beichen skillfully ordered a few dishes that Bailey Hongzhuang liked to eat. He then poured a cup of tea and placed it in front of the woman. Drink some tea first. The food will be here soon. Hearing those caring and gentle words, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes curved into crescent moons. Her eyes were filled with little stars. It had been a long time since she was alone with Di Beichen. The feeling of not having a group of burdens was pretty good. Just at this moment, two more figures appeared in the restaurant. Xiren and Shangwan Ying noticed Mo Yunjue and Zhongli Mu the moment they entered. The two of them subconsciously prepared to leave. However, when they saw Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang not far away, they immediately stopped in their tracks. Chapter 64-65. Xiren, aren't we leaving? What's there to leave for? Aren't Beichen and the rest here too? At most, we'll just sit separately. Xiren pulled Shangwan Ying to a table and sat down. He didn't look at Mo Yunjue and the rest, pretending not to know them. However, just as the two of them sat down, two more purple figures appeared. Could it be so coincidental? Bailey Hongzhuang lowered her head. This was really, Bali Yin, Shay, and Ling obviously didn't expect this, and their expressions changed. Originally, they thought that they couldn't bump into the others, so they walked forward a little and found a restaurant. However, there were already 6 people here. However, Bai Li Yin Che and Shang Wan Ing had the same idea. Since they were already here, they naturally didn't have to avoid arousing suspicion. Xiren couldn't help but look at the surrounding tables. They were almost full now. Di Xiaofeng and the rest wouldn't be here too, right? Luckily, they didn't see any trace of Di Xiaofeng and the rest until the dishes were all served. Otherwise, it would be really interesting if they were all gathered here. On the second floor of the restaurant, many interested gazes fell on the bottom of the main hall. Look, isn't that white-robed man very handsome? I've never seen such a handsome man before. I think that man in black over there is also very handsome and cool. Master might like this type. Hee, I think that man in purple is simply too beautiful. The women looked at each other, and a look of joy appeared on their faces. Wasn't their luck too good today? Usually, it was harder to see one such handsome man than to climb the heavens. However, there were 3 of them today. This was simply a shocking gift. Go, we must bring them back today. There will be rewards then. Di Baichen looked at the cute girl eating and couldn't help but put some food in her bowl. Bailey Hongzhuang ate happily and found that Di Baichen had put more food in her bowl. She couldn't help but look up, her delicate face filled with intimacy. Baichen, don't just put food in my bowl. You eat more too. Di Baichen smiled faintly. Okay. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared beside Di Baichen. Feeling the sudden appearance of the aura, Di Baichen's face instantly turned cold. His dark blue eyes emitted a coldness like 10,000 years old ice. The surrounding temperature seemed to drop in an instant. After feeling the bone-chilling aura, the girl's expression couldn't help but change. Initially, she didn't think too much of this man's power. After all, as long as he wasn't at the elementary celestial stage, cultivators at the radiant sun stage were no threat to them. However, after getting closer, she sensed the terrifying aura from the other party. It was completely different from the gentle and refreshing aura he had used to treat this girl. This feeling was like a spring day in March suddenly turning into an oppressive and bloody azura. That violent and overflowing feeling made one involuntarily take a step back. Looking at Di Baichen, the girl couldn't even complete a sentence. Where in the world did this terrifying fellow come from? She was wrong. She felt that she shouldn't have laid her hands on this man. Chapter 64-66. An awkward and guilty smile floated on the woman's face. She waved her hands in front of her chest, completely forgetting the solemn vow she had made when she arrived. Di Baichen's gaze shifted down and landed on his chair. His aura was still cold and threatening. Seeing this, the woman stood up like lightning, as if the chair was a hot potato and she didn't dare to approach it. Sure enough, a handsome man was hard to capture, especially a handsome man who was already taken. The woman couldn't help but look at the smiling woman beside her. Only then did she realize that the previously naive and cute woman no longer had a smile on her face. Her peerless face was emitting a frightening coldness, and her glass-like eyes had become deep and serene. Her sharp gaze was like a sharp blade filled with murderous intent. How was this still that ordinary-looking woman? Her aura had completely changed to that of a female Azura, all right? Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes, and a frightening, murderous aura exploded. The temperature that had already dropped because of Di Baichen dropped once again. The endless cold air was like the dead of winter. The slightest carelessness could hurt the heart and lungs. This woman, could it be that she wanted to seduce her man in front of her? Seeking death. I've sat in the wrong seat. Don't blame me. The woman was drenched in cold sweat, and her back was instantly soaked. Why did the aura of the 2 people in front of her change so much? What she had just seen was definitely an illusion. The woman beside her saw that she had failed, and a trace of disdain appeared in her eyes. She had failed without even saying anything. She was simply too weak. In the next moment, the woman raised her eyebrows at her, indicating that she should take a good look at how she had seduced a man. This young master, I see that you look unfamiliar. You must be new here. Let me tell your fortune. The woman smiled as she sat down next to Immo Yunjue. Her face was filled with a gentle and charming smile, and her eyes were shining with a breathtaking brilliance. She had originally thought that the man was extremely handsome when she was upstairs. Now that she was closer to him, he was simply too handsome. The man's nose was high and his lips were clear. His thin lips looked fickle and ascetic. His pair of cold eyes were as deep as a black hole, and she couldn't see the slightest fluctuation in his emotions. His originally flawless face, coupled with this unapproachable aura, made one imagine what he would be like once he removed this layer of coldness. She had been wandering around here for quite some time. Although most people at their level of cultivation were good-looking, the man in front of her was completely beyond the scope of good-looking. Okay, this was simply shocking. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, who were familiar with Immo Yunjue, could not help but sigh in their hearts when they saw this woman trying to seduce Immo Yunjue. The consequences could almost be guessed. Chapter 64-67. This kind of gaze was as if he was looking at his prey. It wasn't the gaze of a hunter. It was the gaze of a killer. Wah! The woman seemed to have sensed the aura of death in an instant, and her face turned pale. This man's aura was so scary. It was as if he had walked out from a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, with a deadly and bloodthirsty aura. I feel that my fortune-telling skills are not good enough. If fate allows it in the future, I'll tell young master's fortune again. Immo Yunjue shot her a cold look, and the woman hurriedly changed her words. No more. I won't do it again. The woman, who originally thought that it was very embarrassing to be forced to retreat without even saying a word, suddenly felt a lot better after seeing her like this, at least. The other party didn't ask her to leave, although the meaning of that gaze was more or less the same. It wasn't until the woman left that Immo Yunjue turned his head and continued to eat by himself. Zhong Limu's gaze kept on sizing up Di Beichin and Immo Yunjue. So this was the situation when a handsome man went out. One eye-opener. After the third woman saw that the two women in front of her had failed, her heart was beating like a drum. Usually their actions would not be rejected, but today, perhaps it was because they were too good-looking. Just as the woman was at a loss, the other two women kept giving her encouraging looks. They had already lost so much and naturally wanted to drag another one down with them. Only then would their hearts be at peace. Under the urging gazes of the two, the woman slowly stepped forward and walked to Bai Li Yanchei's side. Young master, my ancestors' fortune-telling skills have been passed down. Why don't I tell your fortune? Bai Li Yanchei slowly turned around. His eyebrows were free and clear, and the corners of his crimson lips were curled into a smile that wasn't a smile. His sparkling eyes were slightly raised, and his gentle and bright temperament was a perfect blend, making it unforgettable. Looking at the man's smile, the woman felt as if fireworks had bloomed in her heart. So handsome. Every frown and smile of his had hooked her soul. Thump, thump. Her heart was beating wildly, and her cheeks were flushed red. Sir, I've read your fortune. Your life is lacking me. Upon hearing this, everyone was stunned. The corners of Xiren's lips twitched as he said, "Are all the women in the chaotic celestial realm so proactive?" Bai Li Hongzhuang facepalmed. These three women really had the same trick. Out of the three of them, only Yanchei had the best temper. He actually let her finish her sentence. Ling'er stared at the woman in a daze. Clearly, she was also shocked by this scene. This was the first time she had seen such a scene in her life. Her gaze then turned to Bai Li Yanchei. What would he do? Bai Li Yanchei's face was as calm as a spring breeze as he stared at the smiling woman in front of him. His thin lips parted slightly as he uttered a few simple words that froze the smile on the woman's face. I don't like old women. Pooh! Xiren, who was about to drink a mouthful of water to calm his nerves, couldn't help but spit it out when he heard this. Yanchei, even though I think what you said makes a lot of sense, isn't a little too heart-wrenching for you to say it so bluntly? The woman stared at Bai Li Yanchei in disbelief. It was as if she couldn't believe that such cruel words had come from the mouth of this man who was as beautiful as a cherry blossom. Chapter 64-68. Old Woman. The woman pointed at herself, her eyes wide. You said I'm old? Isn't that so? The smile on by Li Yin-che's lips widened, and his clean face became even more refreshing and perfect. Such an enchanting appearance, like a spring breeze, was completely impossible to connect with what he had just said. Most importantly, that matter-of-fact tone, that gentle smile in his eyes, actually made it hard for people to get angry. The woman patted her own chest. She was about to vomit to death. She was clearly very angry, but facing that face, she couldn't bring herself to scold him. What kind of situation was this? After hearing Bai Li Yin-che's words, Ling retracted her gaze. Her restrained, beautiful eyes unconsciously revealed a trace of a smile, which disappeared in an instant. The two women who had originally felt very embarrassed were now in a much better mood. At least, they weren't called old women for women. Such words were simply too heart-wrenching. Following the defeat of the three women, Xiren's mind was already thinking about what he should say to reject the other party, to show that he was different from the rest. After all, there had already been 3 demonstrations before. If he couldn't show a bit of sincerity, wouldn't he be a level weaker? However, just as Xiren tidied his clothes, waiting to properly display his charm and sincerity in front of Shang Wanning, he discovered that the women had left. Left? Why did they leave just like that? Xiren's face stiffened as he looked in the direction the 3 women had left. Was there a need for that? He wasn't bad-looking, okay? What the hell was with being ignored just like that? The atmosphere in the entire hall returned to normal. Everyone looked at Di Beichen and the others with strange gazes originally. The sudden appearance of such a group of handsome men was already very surprising. In the end, the way they rejected women was really endless. However, the only similarity was that it hurt their hearts. These guys from the Demon Immortal sect are indeed unreliable. Didn't they think about how beautiful the women beside them are? Are they comparable to them? That's true. If I were them, I'd definitely look down on the women from the Demon Immortal sect. Actually, I quite like the women from the Demon Immortal sect. They really have good luck with women. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichun, who was as handsome as a god, and then looked at Mo Yunjue, who was untainted by the common populace. Coupled with Bailey Yinch's dazzling smile, she couldn't help but shake her head and sigh. You guys, you're all too handsome. No wonder you get into trouble when you go out. They had just arrived at the chaotic immortal realm, and such a thing had already happened. The 3 ladies had left immediately. Otherwise, a huge battle would have been unavoidable. Indeed, men with devilishly handsome men are not easy to deal with. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's face, Mo's face, Bailey Hongzhuang, Zhong Limu slowly raised his head and said, Sister Hongzhuang, do you not know yourself well enough? Bailey Hongzhuang, I know myself very well. Are you sure? I can't take it anymore. Why isn't anyone flirting with me? We clearly came in together, didn't we? Xiren couldn't control his emotions. My heart is hurt. Chapter 64-69. When Xiren's face stiffens, fuck. You actually want to stab me in the heart. Beichun, I can't take it anymore. I want to cut ties with Yunjue. He's discriminating against me. When Xiren looks at Di Beichun with tears streaming down his face, as if Mo Yunjue has snatched away his beloved woman. However, Shangwan Yingying's face is numb. This guy has been with Di Beichun for so long, yet he still doesn't have enough recognition of his own face. Di Beichun raises his eyebrows like smoke, his eyes as calm as water. He might also want to cut ties with you. I can't live like this anymore. After I finish this meal, I'll part ways with you guys. Master's decision was indeed correct. A clear stream like me can't wallow in a mire with you guys, lest I'm polluted by you. Bailey Hongzhuang shakes her head and sighs. As expected, looks are Xiren's life's pain. Actually, Xiren also has sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, and a dignified appearance. Unfortunately, he has 3 evildoers by his side. She doesn't know if this should be considered fortunate or unfortunate. Bailey Hongzhuang beckons the waiter over and asks, Do you know who those 3 girls are? Although the incident just now was a bit sudden, and those 3 girls didn't make a move, they still offended them. Before the other party comes knocking on their door, they have to figure out the other party's identity. They're from the Demon Immortal Sect. Demon Immortal Sect? Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes faintly raise. Her flower-like face carries a trace of contemplation. That's a sect. The Demon Immortal Sect is a power in our Cloud Division city. They cough. The waiter scratches his head a bit embarrassedly. It's really too embarrassing to talk about this in front of a girl, especially in front of a beauty that can topple cities. What's wrong? Bailey Hongzhuang's brows reveal a trace of worry. Could it be that this Demon Immortal Sect is very difficult to deal with? Di Beichen's gaze also falls on the waiter. There's no harm in saying it. They're walking the path of dual cultivation. As soon as he said this, Di Beichen, Imo Yunjue, Bali Yin Che, and when Xiren's expressions all became very interesting. So, the purpose of those three women flirting with them just now was for this? The boss of the Demon Immortal Sect only likes good-looking men. Therefore, when they saw that you young masters had extraordinary looks, they must have had this thought. The waiter was a little embarrassed and added, "Actually, many men are very happy to contact them." Zhong Limu was completely dumbfounded. He never thought that the world outside the abandoned immortal forest would be like this. Imo Yunjue looked at the dazed Zhong Limu and reminded him, "Children should listen to healthy content." Zhong Limu, big brother, you were almost caught for dual cultivation. Shangguan Yingying put her hands on her hips, her eyes flashing with a cold light. "You seem to want to leave with them?" Xiren shuddered and instinctively felt threatened. He quickly waved his hands and said seriously, No. You must have seen wrongly. My feelings for you can be seen by the sun and moon. In this world, apart from you, I don't like anyone else. How could I like that old woman?" The surrounding people looked at Xiren speechlessly. You can even say such things that go against your conscience. It can be said that your desire to live is very strong. Bailey Hongzhuang sped up her eating speed and picked up all the food in Di Beichen's bowl. "Beichen, hurry up and eat. Once you're done, we'll leave." Chapter 6470. "That won't do." Bailey Hongzhuang refused in all seriousness. "Why?" A trace of puzzlement flitted across his deep eyes. Seeing the anxiety on the woman's delicate face, Di Beichen's magnetic voice also carried a trace of concern. Bailey Hongzhuang's glass-like eyes revealed an unprecedented seriousness. "Beichen, they want to capture you and take you back to be their mistress." Di Beichen, mistress of the fort? You're so good-looking, I think they definitely won't give up. Who knows, they might even bring someone back right away. Since the boss of the Demon Immortal Sect is searching everywhere for handsome men, you can imagine their temperament. I can't let them snatch you away. Bailey Hongzhuang lowered her voice. If it were any other day, losing wouldn't be a big deal. But right now, she couldn't. Once she lost, wouldn't it be terrible if Beichen was captured and taken away to be their mistress? She wasn't willing to take this kind of risk that obviously wasn't worth it. Di Beichen suddenly chuckled. His eyes were filled with laughter, and it was as if there were thousands of flowers blooming in the depths of his eyes. The indulgence in his eyes grew deeper and deeper. The normally fearless Hongzhuang actually had a time when she was worried. And what she was worried about was this kind of problem. Don't worry. Unless you become the fort's chief, I can't possibly be your mistress. The man's chuckle was filled with endless charm. Set off by his perfect face, it was truly dazzling and mesmerizing, making people forget to breathe. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyes to look at the man in front of her who was laughing so casually and ostentatiously. She noticed that the entire hall was dumbstruck, and the women's eyes were filled with love. She immediately ate even faster. Such a good-looking man. If the women of the Demon Immortal Sect took a fancy to him, wouldn't they pester him to death? Someone like her who was carrying such a great treasure had to hurry and take him away. After putting down the bowl and chopsticks, Bailey Hongzhuang pulled Di Beichen's hand and prepared to leave. This place was too dangerous. It was better to go further away. Before she left, Bailey Hongzhuang stopped in her tracks and looked at the people who were still eating. Linger, look after Yin Che. Zhongli, look after Yinju. Don't let them be taken away by the demon immortal sect. Pooh. When Zyron couldn't help but spit out another mouthful of rice. So, just how perverted was the boss of the demon immortal sect? Wasn't it a little too exaggerated to let her subordinates come out to snatch a man in broad daylight? However, that was not the main point. When Zyron stood up and said, "Why don't you let Ying look after me?" Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Zyron. "You're safer. Don't worry for now." Zyron. How could he live like this? Completely ignoring Zyron's shattered heart, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen turned and left the restaurant. Walking on the streets of the realm of chaos, many people curiously sized up Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. Such a good-looking couple was really too rare. Just looking at them was pleasing to the eye. "Beichen, where are we going next?" Bailey Hongzhuang looked up at Di Beichen with a faint smile on her charming face. They were quite a distance away from the restaurant. They shouldn't be here for a while. Since they were here to train, they had to find a place to stay. Besides, they didn't know enough about the situation in the realm of chaos. Chapter 6471. Sure. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded with a faint smile. They had just arrived in the realm of chaotic immortal, so they didn't know much about the situation here. However, since they had chosen to come here, they wouldn't be leaving anytime soon. It wasn't convenient for them to stay in a restaurant all day. Moreover, the prices of the restaurants here were sky high. In the long run, it was naturally more appropriate to rent a room. Although the two of them were unfamiliar faces in the realm of chaotic immortal, because of their extraordinary auras, no one came to cause trouble for them. Almost everyone who lived here was a shrewd person. They could tell who could and couldn't attack based on their auras and other aspects. Don't look at how the atmosphere between Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang was like a spring breeze, but from their casual glances, it was clear that they were murderous like a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. This kind of person, it was best not to act rashly before they knew more about him. After paying the rent, Bailey Hongzhuang's face was filled with pain. In fact, they didn't have many blood spirit stones on them. Moreover, they needed them for their daily cultivation. Now that they had paid the rent, their wallets were basically empty. Although they still had a lot of devouring spirit stones, they were treasures even in the realm of chaotic immortal, let alone in the realm of chaotic immortal. Even if they only had 1 or 2 devouring spirit stones, it would attract a lot of attention. If they took out more than 10 devouring spirit stones, they would definitely be targeted. They had just arrived, so they didn't want to be the center of attention. "Beichun, I think we should go to the elixir store and sell some blood spirit stones. That way, we'll have more money on hand." Bailey Hongzhuang looked at him. No matter the time and place, elixirs were extremely tempting to cultivators. She had refined these elixirs when she was practicing in the abandoned immortal forest. There were quite a lot of them, and most of them weren't useful to them at the moment. Thinking about it, if they sold these elixirs, they should be able to get a lot of blood spirit stones. Also, I want to buy an immortal pill furnace. Her previous pill furnace was no longer suitable in the realm of chaotic immortals. This was because the fire required to refine immortal spirit herbs was much stronger, and the pill furnaces in the upper realm couldn't handle it. When she was in the abandoned immortal forest, she had always used her mother-in-law's immortal pill furnace to refine pills. Originally, Granny had planned to give her the celestial pill furnace, but she had rejected it. Granny rarely went to the celestial realm, and it would be inconvenient if she didn't have this celestial pill furnace. Now that she was in the realm of chaotic immortal, she only needed to buy one. "All right, I'll listen to you." Bailey Hongzhuang looked up and saw Di Beichen's doting smile. Her heart immediately warmed. Perhaps it was because the two of them had not been alone for a long time. Although the two of them were together in the abandoned immortal forest, they were busy studying every night. By the time they were done, they were already exhausted. Now that they were out like this, they actually regained the feeling of a newlywed couple traveling outside. "Let's go then." Bailey Hongzhuang turned around and was about to leave when Di Beichen pulled her back. Di Beichen's slender, almost translucent fingers lifted her chin. The faint smell of bamboo refreshed her mind, and a shadow shrouded her. The next second, a lingering kiss covered her lips. Ugh. Chapter 6472. Di Beichen only let go of Bailey Hongzhuang when the air in his chest was running out. The man's deep eyes were filled with desire. The woman's faint scent wafted into his nostrils like an aphrodisiac, exuding a deadly charm. Even though they were separated by clothes, he could feel her warmth. It was as if a flame had ignited his body, and he could not help but feel hot. His gaze landed on her fair and translucent neck. Her fair skin was like a piece of jade surrounded by an alluring luster. His fingers could not help but caress her smooth and tender neck. The soft and warm touch ignited a flame in his heart. The man's hand seemed to have magical powers. Just by touching her skin, her body could not help but tremble. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly raised her eyes. Because of the lingering kiss, her black and white eyes had a trace of confusion. It was like a wisp of mist lingering around her, but it exuded a seductive aura. It was just a look, but it instantly tore the thread in the man's heart. In the next moment, Di Beichun lifted Bailey Hongzhuang up by the waist and walked towards the back. Bailey Hongzhuang gasped. Her mind was blank. Aren't we going out? We'll go later. The woman's ravishing face was reflected in the mirror. Her exquisite features were like a masterpiece meticulously crafted by the heavens. It was as if she was born to be favored by the heavens, and all the beauty was given to her. However, the woman was panting with anger and furrowing her brows. She looked at the marks on her neck with dissatisfaction. It's all your fault. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Di Beichen. It was summer now, and she was wearing thin clothes. There was nothing to cover her neck. How was she going to leave the house with these marks? Di Beichen's gaze landed on the red spots on the woman's fair neck. They were exuding an ambiguous aura. His gaze turned passionate again. Why not? Why not? Of course not. Look at me now. How am I supposed to go out? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen angrily. The kiss mark was on her neck, so of course he didn't care. It's normal for a married woman. Di Beichen's expression was calm, and there was not the slightest bit of guilt on his handsome face. It was as if this was extremely normal, but in the depths of his unfathomable handsome eyes, he could not help but smile a little. This is not fair. Bailey Hongzhuang crossed her arms and looked at Di Beichen angrily. Does this guy even understand what I'm angry about? In the next moment, Di Beichen suddenly pulled open the shirt on his chest, revealing his lustrous skin and sexy and enchanting collarbone. Gulp. Bailey Hongzhuang swallowed a mouthful of saliva. She had to say, with such a perfect body and that enchanting face, the temptation was simply impeccable. Ah? You? What are you doing? Isn't it unfair? Di Beichen raised his eyebrows, and his thin lips curved into a faint smile. Bailey Hongzhuang was stunned. Thinking back to what they had just said, because she said it was unfair, so in order to be fair, he also let her leave a mark? That was true, but why did she feel that if she did that, she would be the one losing face? If she went out like this, what would others think of her? Her pretty face was filled with embarrassment. Bailey Hongzhuang closed Di Beichen's shirt, but before she closed it, she couldn't help but touch it. It felt so good. Chapter 6473. Bailey Hongzhuang fiddled with it for a long time before she managed to cover up the mark on her neck with a disguise technique. Ever since she'd learned that ordinary disguises were useless in the immortal region, she hadn't prepared anything like this. Who would have thought that she'd end up using it to cover up this mark? Walking on the streets of Shiyun City, the city at night was less scorching than it was during the day. Instead, it was a little cooler. The dim yellow light emitted a bit of warmth in the pitch-black night, as if the entire city had become quiet and peaceful. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze scanned the two sides of the street. Shiyun City was very large. Even though they'd already wandered around during the day, they'd only walked a short distance. No matter where they were, pill shops were bound to exist. It was just that they didn't know their exact location. Wanbao Pavilion. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up as she looked at the dazzling shop in front of her. This shop was several times the size of the other shops. Even at night, the lights illuminated the entire shop. At a glance, one could tell that the items here were definitely expensive. Di Beichun, let's go in and take a look. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes widened. Although she didn't know whether this place accepted pills or not, there was definitely an immortal pill furnace here. Now that they were outside, what she needed most was an immortal pill furnace. After all, without enough blood spirit stones, her cultivation speed would slow down. Di Beichen nodded slightly, then walked in while holding Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. As soon as the two of them appeared, the Wanbao Pavilion's attendant welcomed them with a wide smile. What would the two of you like to see? I'd like to see an immortal pill furnace. Bailey Hongzhuang went straight to the point. Thinking back to when she'd first seen Granny Hua's immortal pill furnace, she'd really liked it. If she could find one to her liking, that would be great. When he heard that Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to see an immortal pill furnace, a trace of surprise appeared in the attendant's eyes. However, he quickly suppressed this trace of emotion. The immortal pill furnace is over here. Please follow me. The attendant bent over and pointed to the front. Then he led the way inside. Bailey Hongzhuang followed closely behind. She looked around the Wanbao Pavilion. There were pills, weapons, armors, runes. Almost everything a cultivator needed was here. It was worthy of the name Wanbao Pavilion. Even if it was just a casual glance, Bailey Hongzhuang knew that the level of the things here was not bad. Soon, the attendant brought Bailey Hongzhuang to a shelf full of elixir furnaces. Miss, take a look at the things here. Are you satisfied with them? The attendant smiled with a hint of pride on his face. Our Myriad Treasure Pavilion's products have always been outstanding. The materials and workmanship of these immortal pill furnaces are all top-notch. They will be handy when used to refine pills. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the immortal pill furnace in front of her. The immortal pill furnace was different from the one she usually used. The immortal pill furnace could change its size. Although the immortal pill furnace in front of her looked like it was only the size of a palm, as long as she injected her elemental energy into it, the immortal pill furnace would become normal. The quality of these pill furnaces looked very good, although there was still a big gap between them and Granny Hua's immortal pill furnace. The immortal pill furnace in the hands of a powerhouse like Granny Hua must be extremely valuable. In her current situation, an ordinary immortal pill furnace was enough. Chapter 6474. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes rested on an exquisite white immortal pill furnace. This immortal pill furnace could be said to be the best one on the shelf. Disregarding everything else, just the price alone was enough to show that. 100,000 blood spirit stones. This was not a price that ordinary people could afford. This unit of measurement was blood spirit stones, not ordinary spirit stones. However, most immortal medicine masters were very rich. Moreover, it was not easy to forge an elixir furnace. Naturally, it was much more expensive than weapons. Other than this elixir furnace, there were other elixir furnaces that cost 30,000, 50,000, and 70,000. There were all kinds of elixir furnaces. However, she had her eyes on this white elixir furnace. If I want to buy this elixir furnace, can it be cheaper? Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at the attendant. 100,000 blood spirit stones. Even if they were selling elixirs, they would have to sell a lot of them. Now, not only did they want to buy an elixir furnace, but they also needed to change their weapons to immortal weapons. This was the time when they needed money. Naturally, they would save as much as possible. An apologetic look appeared on the attendant's face. Miss, I'm really sorry. Our Wanbao Pavilion never gives discounts. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. In fact, she was just trying to ask, and the result was not beyond her expectations. If you like it, then buy it. Di Beichun patted Bailey Hongzhuang's head. His smile was full of affection. He knew that Hongzhuang did not care about worldly things. However, elixir furnaces had always been her favorite. Naturally, she wanted to buy something like this. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyes and looked at Di Beichun. After seeing the approval in his eyes, her eyes also burst into a smile. May I ask if I can exchange elixirs for this elixir furnace? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the attendant. In fact, this kind of thing was not a problem in any shop. As expected, the attendant nodded. That's not a problem. Only a small number of immortal medicine masters needed elixir furnaces. No one knew how long it would take to sell one. However, elixirs were different. Among all the varieties in the Wanbao Pavilion, elixirs sold the fastest. However, what kind of elixirs are you willing to exchange for 100,000 blood spirit stones? A trace of hesitation appeared on the attendant's face. Elixirs were expensive, but compared to an elixir furnace, the difference was not small. Why buy an elixir furnace if you don't have the money? Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to answer, a contemptuous and arrogant voice suddenly sounded from behind them. Hearing this voice, Bailey Hongzhuang's brows unconsciously wrinkled, a trace of displeasure flashing through her glass-like eyes. A yellow figure appeared next to Bailey Hongzhuang. The gorgeous yellow color was very eye-catching. The woman was tall and had a pretty face. However, there was a trace of arrogance in her eyes. At this moment, she was looking at Bailey Hongzhuang with disdain with her chin raised. That kind of disdain was not directed at a specific person. Instead, it was the disdain of a snob. It was as if she was superior to others and looked down on all living things. I want this elixir furnace. Buy it for me. Miss Yun. The attendant immediately recognized the person when he saw him. His calm face was filled with respect and humility. 100,000 blood spirit stones, right? Yin Xiaoman's lips curled into a casual smile. This is what I want first. Chapter 6475. Unlike Yun Xiaoman's arrogance, her clear and cold voice was neither servile nor overbearing, but it contained a kind of unyielding spirit that couldn't be trampled on. Yun Xiaoman clearly didn't expect that this woman who couldn't even take out 100,000 blood spirit stones would actually dare to compete with her, and her face immediately darkened. You want to steal my things? Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent, and the woman's gloomy face didn't affect her in the slightest. Do you have some kind of misunderstanding about the words my things? If I say it's my things, then it's my things. Do you know how many pills it takes to exchange for 100,000 blood spirit stones? With your poor appearance, do you think you can afford it? Yin Xiaoman disdainfully sized up Bailey Hongzhuang. Originally, she had only seen the woman's back and didn't take her seriously, but after seeing the woman raise her head, her expression unconsciously changed a bit. The woman in front of her was really too beautiful. Her white skin was so delicate that it could be broken by the wind, and her small face without any makeup was elegant and refined. Under her gentle and elegant willow leaf eyebrows were a pair of glass-like eyes, releasing a restrained light. Even though she was expressionless at this moment, she still exuded a soul-stirring beauty. People couldn't help but think that if she smiled, she would truly be a peerless beauty that could topple a city. You don't need to worry. Facing the woman's casual and neither servile nor overbearing appearance, a trace of jealousy appeared in Yun Xiaoman's eyes. If I say I want it, then what? Yun Xiaoman's voice was as cold as ice, and a strong sense of threat spread out. At this time, Di Beichun, who had been silent all this time, suddenly opened his mouth. Is this how 10,000 Treasures Pavilion does business? His voice was like 10,000-year-old ice that couldn't be melted, exuding a bone-chilling coldness and a terrifying pressure. The atmosphere in the room seemed to freeze in an instant. Di Beichun's gaze fell lightly on the attendant. It was clearly a calm and indifferent gaze, but the attendant felt as if he had been stared at by something terrifying. A terrifying chill ran from the soles of his feet to his heart, causing him to shiver. The attendant immediately recovered from his previous confusion and hurriedly said, Miss Yun, I'm really sorry. Our 10,000 Treasures Pavilion has always done business on a first-come, first-served basis. This immortal pill furnace was requested by this lady first. Unless this lady gives up, I can't sell it to you. Only then did Yin Xiaoman notice the man beside her. Facing that astonishing face, her eyes couldn't help but reveal a trace of amazement. A godlike man. She had never known that a man could be so handsome, almost satisfying all the beautiful fantasies of a woman. His white brocade robe perfectly outlined his broad shoulders and slender waist. The golden outer garment added a trace of nobility and innate elegance. The man's immortal-like cold and incomparably beautiful face was perfect and impeccable. His entire body exuded a domineering aura that looked down on the world. Almost at the first moment, Yun Xiaoman's face flushed red. Her heart thumped, and she even regretted her actions just now. That arrogant appearance, she was afraid that it directly left a very bad impression in the man's heart. Young master, I am Yun Xiaoman. May I know young master's name? Chapter 6476. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows slightly raised. She didn't expect that the originally arrogant and insufferably arrogant woman would suddenly turn into a little sheep. That flirtatious look in her eyes. What was she trying to do? Even if she was captivated by the beauty, to change her face so quickly, didn't she think about the other party's feelings? Facing the woman's expectant gaze, Di Beichen's cold and indifferent face didn't have the slightest change in expression. His gaze fell on Bailey Hongzhuang's body, as if from beginning to end, he only had eyes for Bailey Hongzhuang. You can ask my wife. The indifferent voice was as cold as water, without any ripples, but also revealed a kind of alienation in the bones. Yin Xiaoman was startled. Her face changed from the initial astonishment to disbelief. With difficulty and obscurity, she said, Madam? That's right. These two simple words seemed to freeze Yun Xiaoman's palpitating heart. Immediately after, with a kacha sound, cracks appeared on her heart. Her gaze flickered between the man and woman in front of her. Especially after noticing the evil playfulness in the woman's eyes, she only felt a burst of shame. The feeling of shame and anger quickly swept through her heart. She, Yin Xiaoman, had always had extremely high standards. To be able to catch her eye, a man should burn incense. However, the man in front of her completely ignored her existence. That rejection, without the slightest hesitation, was like a sharp knife piercing her heart. Xiaoman, have you bought your immortal pill furnace? At this time, an arrogant voice came from outside. Then, a dark red figure appeared beside Yun Xiaoman. After noticing the ugly face of the woman, his gaze also shifted to the white immortal pill furnace in Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. He remembered that Xiaoman had previously mentioned to him that she had taken a fancy to a white immortal pill furnace in the Thousand Treasures Pavilion. The pill furnaces on the shelves in front of him were quite colorful, but white. Only the one in the woman's hand. Almost immediately, he had already understood what had happened. His gaze slowly moved up the pill furnace, and when he saw the beautiful yet pure face, a strange light appeared in his eyes. Yin Xiaoman was already feeling very embarrassed and didn't know how to get out of this situation. After seeing the man appear, she instantly seemed to have found someone to rely on. Brother they stole my immortal pill furnace. Hearing this, Guan Yi frowned. He had already guessed this point, but when Yun Xiaoman said it herself, his eyes became cold. Although the woman in front of him was beautiful, Yun Xiaoman was an immortal medicine master. Even in the entire Shiyun city, she was very famous. There were very few immortal pharmacists in the first place. Most of the outstanding immortal pharmacists had gone to the immortal realms. Therefore, the immortal pharmacists in the realm of chaos were very popular. Between beauty and value, value was naturally more important. He slowly turned his gaze to Di Beichen. I'll pay double the price, and you'll give me my immortal pill furnace. How about that? Brother isn't double the price a bit too high? Yin Xiaoman exclaimed. Although she was impressed by Guan Yi's generous methods, double the price was equivalent to 200,000 blood spirit stones. It was really too wasteful. Guan Yi flaunted himself with a smile. As long as you like it, it's not a problem. Yin Xiaoman was slightly stunned. Then her eyes lit up. Chapter 6477. Brother you're so good. Yin Xiaoman's eyes blossomed with starry light, and the complacent expression on her face became even stronger. In the blink of an eye, she had already restored her previous arrogant and haughty appearance. For poor people like them, there's no need to double the price. As long as you give them a little bit, they'll immediately relent. Yun Xiaoman's gaze casually swept over Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's face. Today you're lucky. Why aren't you thanking my brother, Yi? After hearing these words, Guan Yi's gaze fell on the clean and flawless face of the woman in front of him, and his mind suddenly became lively again. It turned out to be two poor bastards. Then, as long as he promised some conditions, would this beauty also become one of his people? As long as Yun Xiaoman doesn't know, enjoying this kind of beauty is every man's dream. Looking at the extremely arrogant face in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed a trace of a sneer. This woman's face, changing speed, really makes people gasp in admiration, perfectly interpreting the word power incisively and vividly. At this time, the voice from the side came from above. Won't let. As always, words are like gold. The two indifferent words emitted an irresistible pressure. Di Beichen's deep eyes were as dark as the night. The things that Hong Zhuang likes absolutely cannot be given to others. You? What did you say? Guan Yi stared blankly, as if he couldn't believe that his proposal would actually be rejected. Could it be that you're still not satisfied with this price, and still want to open your lion's mouth? Yin Xiaoman's voice also raised, becoming sharp and unkind. Aren't you a bit too shameless? You've already taken such a big advantage, and you're still not satisfied? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Yun Xiaoman and Guan Yi as if looking at an idiot. How rich is their inner drama? Ah, wrap it up. Di Beichen turned his line of sight to look at the waiter, and the posture of looking straight ahead clearly says that I don't want to pay attention to these two idiots. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips raised a trace of a smile, and holding the man's wide hand, she slowly walked in the direction of the counter. Seeing the two of them ignoring them like this, Yun Xiaoman and Guan Yi's faces turned ashen. Big brother, Yi, they're just deliberately mystifying things. I clearly heard them saying that they wanted to use elixirs to exchange for this immortal pill furnace. Don't tell me they aren't two paupers? Yin Xiaoman's face was filled with unwillingness. She simply did not believe that these two people would face so much money without batting an eyelid. In the end, it was just to extort a little more from them. Guan Yi was originally a little uncertain. After all, these two people seemed to have extraordinary bearings. Perhaps Xiaoman had made a mistake. If they were really poor, how could they ignore 100,000 blood spirit stones? Using pills to exchange for an immortal pill furnace? They were really poor. Come to think of it, this guy just wants to put on a strong front in front of a woman. Let's see how he's going to crush all of this. Brother E, let's go. Yin Xiaoman raised her head high like a proud peacock. I want to see what kind of pills they are going to use to exchange for it. Standing in front of the counter, Bailey Hongzhuang prepared to take out the pills she had refined. The pills she had refined earlier were not of high grade, but the quantity was not small. However, she was not too sure about the price of these pills in the chaotic immortal realm, so she took out a few bottles of pills, wanting to inquire about the price of these pills. Chapter 6478. How bad is the grade of these pills? Don't tell me you took out the pills from the next realm? Those kinds of pills in the chaotic immortal realm are all trash. The sharp voice was full of merciless ridicule and sneer. Yin Xiaoman leaned against the counter, and her pretty face looked like she was waiting to watch a good show. Want to pretend to have no money here? What a joke. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang take out so many pills, the attendant's face turned ugly. Just as Yin Xiaoman said, although the price of the pills was not as good as the immortal pill furnace, how bad is the grade of these pills to exchange for a few bottles? Miss, we only accept immortal spirit pills here. The attendant couldn't help but remind her. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't care. The pills she took out were immortal spirit pills. Ordinary pills were what the cultivators in the lower realm needed. In the immortal realm, they naturally had no use. I know, and you still do this? Yin Xiaoman laughed, and the ridicule in her eyes became stronger. This woman is simply an idiot. Bailey Hongzhuang gradually frowned. She didn't want to argue with this idiot, because arguing with this kind of idiot would only lower her IQ. However, this guy was really annoying when he didn't give up. What I do is my business. You don't need to worry about it. His ink-black phoenix eyes whistled through the wind and snow, like the extreme north, emitting boundless coldness. Just a glance was enough to make the coldness penetrate into the bone marrow. Yin Xiao Man's expression changed, and even the complacent expression on her face unconsciously froze. Under that kind of gaze, she unconsciously panicked for a moment. When she reacted again, her face became even uglier. Just as she was about to flare up again, Guan Yi's casual words directly targeted Di Beichen. As a man, you actually want a woman to pay the bill? Isn't it too shameful? It's better than using money to exchange. Di Beichen's eyes, which were as deep as the sea, did not have the slightest ripple, and his distant voice did not have the slightest hint of hostility. However, when Guan Yi heard this, his expression suddenly turned ugly. What he meant was that the woman beside him had real feelings for him, and he was only using money to exchange for feelings. Obviously, there was nothing wrong with what he said, but Di Beichen's words made it seem like he was at a disadvantage. You can't give your woman what she wants, yet you're still acting so shamelessly here. Isn't that too laughable? Guan Yi was obviously competing with Di Beichen, but he was looking at Bailey Hongzhuang from the corner of his eyes. He wanted to know if this beauty's mood had changed after hearing his words. She will leave you sooner or later. Hearing this, Di Beichen slowly lowered his eyes and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Madam, will you leave me? Looking at that pair of dazzling eyes filled with stars, Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth almost immediately opened into a bright and beautiful smile. I won't. The next second, Di Beichen lowered his head, and his thin lips covered that cherry-colored tender lips. Guan Yi and Yin Xiaoman stared at the scene in front of them, simply could not believe that this was real. Their hearts received a critical hit. Di Beichen raised his eyes. His handsome face was as indifferent as ever. Just casually looking at Guan Yi, he already won. You thought you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.